I refused to cancel my job interview just to drive my wife's sister to the mall. Wife's dad threw me against the wall. Her future matters, yours never did. My wife smirked. So I walked out and they lost everything. The coffee was cold. I remember that detail with strange clarity. The way the mug felt in my hand, ceramic gone lukewarm, the bitter taste on my tongue as I forced myself to swallow. Outside, rain drummed against the kitchen window in sheets, turning the world beyond the glass into a watercolor blur of grays and greens. It was the kind of morning that felt like a metaphor, though I didn't know it yet. The kind where the weather knows something you don't. Daniel, my wife's voice cut through the sound of the rain. Sharp, impatient, the tone she'd been using more and more lately. The one that made me feel like I was perpetually failing some test I hadn't known I was taking. Yeah? I looked up from my laptop where I'd been reviewing notes for the interview. Technical specifications, project management frameworks, questions I'd practiced answering in the mirror until the words felt smooth, rehearsed, almost real. Sarah stood in the doorway, arms crossed, still in her bathrobe, though it was nearly 9. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and there was something in her expression I couldn't quite read. Annoyance, maybe, or calculation. Emma needs a ride to the mall. I blinked. What? Emma, the mall. She has an appointment at Nordstrom for her interview outfit. The sales associate is holding pieces for her. Sarah, I have my interview at 11. I told you about this 3 weeks ago. I put it on the calendar. We talked about... I know. She waved a hand, dismissive. But this is important. Emma's interview is on Friday. She needs to look professional. The absurdity of it hung in the air between us. I waited for her to laugh, to acknowledge the ridiculousness of what she was asking. But her face remained serious, expectant. My interview is in 2 hours, I said slowly, as if speaking to someone who didn't quite understand English. At Meridian Tech, for the senior project manager position, the one that would increase our income by 40%, the one I've been preparing for since you can reschedule. The words landed like a slap. I can reschedule. I repeated it, testing the phrase, waiting for it to make sense. It didn't. Emma can't. The sales associate is only working today. These pieces are from the new collection. If Emma doesn't get there by 10, someone else will buy them. I set down my coffee mug very carefully, the way you handle something that might shatter. Sarah, this is a final round interview. There are 3 candidates. They've flown me out twice. This isn't something you just reschedule because what? Because my sister needs help? Her voice rose, taking on that wounded quality she'd perfected over our 5 years of marriage. You're saying your job is more important than family? There it was, the trap sprung with surgical precision. If you've ever been in a relationship where your words get twisted, where reasonable boundaries become evidence of your selfishness, you know the feeling. It's like standing on sand that shifts beneath you, where solid ground was promised but never delivered. That's not what I said. It's what you meant. She moved further into the kitchen, and I noticed she'd already applied makeup. Not her lazy Sunday look. This was deliberate. Emma's been stressed about this interview for weeks. This is her chance at a real career, a future. And you're going to let her down because of some job interview you can just move to next week? I can't move it to next week. That's not how final interviews work. You won't even try? The rain intensified, hammering against the windows like it was trying to get in, or maybe trying to warn me. Where's Emma's car? I asked, though I already knew the answer. In the shop, transmission. And your car? Dad borrowed it. His is getting detailed. What about your mom? Book club. Sarah's jaw tightened. Why are you making this so difficult? It's just a drive. 30 minutes there, 30 back. You'd still have time. I looked at the clock. 9:15, the mall was 25 minutes away, in good weather. In this rain? 40 minutes minimum, plus parking, plus waiting for Emma to finish whatever production she'd make of selecting her interview outfit. I'd be cutting it impossibly close, arriving at Meridian Tech flustered, late, unprepared, if I arrived at all. No, I said. The word felt foreign in my mouth. How many times had I said yes to these requests? How many times had I rearranged my life, my schedule, my priorities? to accommodate Sarah's family. Her sister's drama, her father's demands, her mother's gentle manipulations disguised as requests. Too many times. Enough times that no had become a revolutionary act. Sarah's eyes widened. Excuse me? I said no, I'm not canceling my interview. Emma can Uber, or wait until tomorrow, or wear something she already owns. You're serious. Completely. Emma can't afford an Uber right now. She's between jobs. Then she can ask your parents for money. Or you can drive her, or, and here's a radical thought, she can take the bus. Sarah's expression shifted, hardening into something I'd seen before but never directed at me with quite this intensity. This was the face she made when a restaurant got her order wrong. When a store refused to accept a return past the deadline. The face that said, "You will regret making things difficult." "My dad's coming over," she said quietly. Too quietly. "Why?" "To talk some sense into you." My stomach dropped. "You called your father about this?" "I texted him 20 minutes ago." She glanced at her phone. "He should be here any minute." And just like that, I understood. This wasn't about Emma's outfit. This wasn't about a ride to the mall. This was a test, carefully orchestrated, designed to establish a hierarchy I'd been too blind to see forming. In that hierarchy, I was at the bottom. The doorbell rang and Sarah smiled. Not a warm smile. Not the smile I'd fallen in love with 6 years ago when she'd laughed at my terrible jokes in that coffee shop near campus. This was something else entirely. This was victory. Richard Caldwell didn't knock. He never did. The door swung open with the kind of confidence that comes from a man who's never been told no, or if he has, never listened. He filled the doorway, 6'3", broad-shouldered, wearing a golf polo despite the rain, his silver hair perfectly styled even at 9:30 on a Tuesday morning. Behind him, Emma hovered, looking significantly less distressed than Sarah's description had suggested. In fact, Emma looked annoyed at being awake. "Daniel," Richard's voice was cordial, almost friendly, the tone a CEO uses when he's about to fire someone but wants them to think it's a mutual decision. "We need to talk." "Mr. Caldwell." I stood, my laptop still open on the kitchen table, notes for the interview visible on the screen. "I'm actually preparing for—" "I know," Sarah told me. He moved into the kitchen without invitation, Emma trailing behind him, already scrolling through her phone. "That's why I'm here, to help you understand priorities." There was something surreal about the moment. My father-in-law, uninvited in my home, standing in my kitchen on a Tuesday morning, about to lecture me about priorities, while I prepared for an interview that could change our financial trajectory, while his youngest daughter scrolled through Instagram, bored by a crisis she'd apparently manufactured. "With respect," I said carefully, "my priorities are clear. I have a job interview in 90 minutes that I've been preparing for, and my daughter needs a ride." Richard's smile didn't waver, but his eyes went cold. 30 minutes of your time. That's all we're asking. It's not 30 minutes. In this weather, it's at least 2 hours door to door. And that's if everything goes perfectly. Which it won't, because Emma will need time to browse, to try things on. Are you saying my daughter isn't worth 2 hours of your time? The question was a trap, beautifully constructed. Answer yes, and I'm a selfish husband who doesn't value family. Answer no, and I admit the time commitment while having no excuse not to do it. I chose a different path. I'm saying I have a commitment, one I made before this request, one that affects our household income, our future, our ability to— "Your future," Chicken Richard laughed, sharp and sudden. "Son, let me tell you about the future. The future is Emma getting into commercial real estate. The future is her building the kind of career that actually matters. Your little tech interview? That's just a job. Jobs come and go. But Emma's opportunity? This is a trajectory, a legacy." I felt something shift in my chest, a small crack, like ice beginning to break. "My little tech interview is for a $160,000 position." Richard waved his hand. "Money isn't everything, Daniel. Surely Sarah's taught you that. It's about impact, influence. The Caldwell name means something in this city. Emma's not just interviewing for a job, she's representing our family's reputation." "And what am I representing?" The question came out harder than I'd intended. Richard's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? When I interview, when I work 60-hour weeks to keep up with bills, when I defer my career advancement to attend family dinners and golf tournaments and charity galas, what am I representing? You're representing your commitment to this family. Sarah's voice came from behind me. I'd almost forgotten she was there. Or at least you should be. I turned to look at her, really look at her. When had her expression become so satisfied? Like she'd been waiting for this moment, this confrontation, this chance to watch me be put in my place. I am committed to this family, I said quietly. I'm committed to building a future where we're not living paycheck to paycheck, where we can afford the house Sarah wants, the vacations, the lifestyle you all enjoy and expect me to fund. Oh, here we go. Emma didn't even look up from her phone. The money speech. Classic Daniel. Emma, Richard's voice held a warning, but it was gentle, indulgent, the way you reprimand a child you don't actually want to discipline. She rolled her eyes but went quiet. Richard moved closer to me, not aggressive exactly, but deliberate, closing space, establishing dominance through proximity. Let me explain something to you, he said, his voice dropping to that register rich men use when they're about to impart wisdom they consider profound. I've built 3 companies from the ground up, sold 2 for 8 figures each. I know a thing or two about success. And here's what I know about you, Daniel. You're a good employee, solid, reliable, but you're not a builder. You're not someone who creates opportunities. You take what's given to you and you do your best, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. The condescension was so thick I could taste it. But Emma? He glanced at his youngest daughter with something approaching worship. Emma has vision. She has the Caldwell instinct. When she interviews at Sterling Properties on Friday, she's not just getting a job. She's beginning an empire. And sometimes, Daniel, people like you need to step back so people like her can step forward. The crack in my chest widened. Step back, I repeated. Reschedule your interview. You'll get other chances. This is Emma's moment. I looked at Sarah. Surely she would say something. Surely my wife, the woman who'd promised to build a life with me, would recognize the insanity of what her father was saying. She met my eyes and shrugged. That shrug, God, that shrug. It said everything. It said, you heard him. It said, this is how things are. It said, stop making this difficult. No, I said. Richard's expression changed. The friendly CEO mask slipped, revealing something harder underneath. I don't think you understand. I understand perfectly. My voice was steady now, clear. You want me to sacrifice my career advancement so Emma can buy a designer outfit for an interview she could do in business, casual from Target. You want me to accept that my future, my work, my commitment to this household is less important than your daughter's shopping trip. And you want me to do it with a smile and gratitude that you even asked instead of just demanding. Watch your tone, Richard said, his voice going quiet. Dangerous. Or what? Or you'll regret it. We stood there, eyes locked, the rain still hammering outside, the kitchen lights humming overhead. Sarah had gone very still. Emma had finally looked up from her phone, watching with interest, like this was entertainment. I'm going to my interview, I said. Emma can find another ride. I moved to close my laptop. I never saw Richard move. One moment I was reaching for my computer. The next, his hand was on my chest, shoving, hard. I stumbled backward into the wall, my spine connecting with the plaster with enough force to knock the air from my lungs. A framed photo, our wedding photo, rattled on its hook. Her future matters. Richard's face was inches from mine, his hand still pressed against my chest, pinning me. Yours never did. The words hung in the air like smoke. I looked past him, to Sarah. She stood by the kitchen island, arms still crossed, watching. I waited for her to react, to tell her father to stop, to defend me, her husband, from being physically assaulted in our own home. She smirked. It wasn't a big smile, just a small curve of her lips, there and going like she'd tried to hide it but couldn't quite manage. A smile that said, finally, you're learning your place. Something in me broke then, not the small crack from before. This was fundamental. Structural. The kind of break that can't be repaired because once you see certain truths, you can't unsee them. I looked at Richard, at his hand on my chest, at the certainty in his eyes that I would fold, that I would apologize, that I would do what I was told because that's what I always did. Get your hand off me, I said quietly. Or what? Richard leaned in closer. His breath smelled like coffee and mint. You'll call the police? Report me? 'Cause a scene? We both know you won't, because you need this family more than we need you. Richard, Sarah's voice held a note of warning, not because she was concerned for me, but because neighbors might hear, because this might become messy. He held my gaze for another moment, then stepped back, his hand dropping. Get Emma to the mall. We'll forget this little tantrum. You can grovel to Meridian Tech later. Reschedule for next week. Everyone wins. I looked at my watch. 9:47, the interview was at 11. I needed to leave in the next 10 minutes to have any chance of making it on time. I looked at Emma, still on her phone. I looked at Sarah, waiting. I looked at Richard, so certain of his power, his control, his right to dictate my life. And I made a choice. No! Richard's jaw tightened. Daniel, I'm going to my interview. You all can figure out Emma's transportation. I'm done. I grabbed my laptop, my portfolio, my keys. My hands were shaking, adrenaline flooding my system, but my voice stayed steady. That surprised me, that I could sound so calm while everything inside me was screaming. If you walk out that door, Sarah said, her voice sharp, don't expect me to be here when you get back. I stopped, turned. Is that a threat? It's a fact. You're choosing a job interview over family, over me, over our marriage. I'm choosing to respect a commitment I made, to honor my word, to not let people who claim to love me treat me like I'm disposable. Disposable? Richard laughed. Son, we're trying to teach you about sacrifice, about putting others first, about being a man. No, I said, you're trying to teach me that I don't matter, that my goals, my career, my future are negotiable whenever they inconvenience you, that I should be grateful for the privilege of being useful. I walked to the door. Daniel! Sarah's voice cracked. For a second, I heard something in it. Panic, maybe. Fear. The realization that I might actually leave. Don't you dare. I'll be back around 1, I said without turning around. We can talk then. If you leave, Richard said, his voice cold with certainty, you're finished with this family. Do you understand me? Finished. Sarah will file for divorce. We'll make sure you lose everything. Your reputation in this city, your career prospects, I opened the door. The rain hit my face cold and clean. We'll destroy you, Richard called after me. I got in my car, started the engine, put it in reverse. Through the rain-streaked windshield, I could see them standing in the doorway, Richard, Sarah, and Emma. A united front, a family I'd spent 5 years trying to join, trying to please, trying to prove myself worthy of. I backed out of the driveway. I didn't look back. The rain didn't let up. I drove through sheets of it, my windshield wipers working overtime, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white. The adrenaline made everything sharp, the sound of the rain, the red taillights of the car ahead, the rhythmic thump of my heart against my ribs. Her future matters. Yours never did. The words kept replaying, a loop I couldn't shut off. Not Richard's voice exactly, more like the truth behind it, the assumption that had been there all along but never spoken so plainly. I was functional, useful, a supporting character in someone else's story. The GPS said I'd arrive at 10:53, 7 minutes before the interview. Cutting it close but possible. If I didn't hit traffic, if I found parking immediately, if everything went perfectly. When does everything ever go perfectly? My phone rang through the car speakers. Sarah. I declined the call. It rang again. Richard this time. Declined. Sarah again. I turned off Bluetooth. The silence that followed felt like freedom and terror in equal measure. For the first time in 5 years, I'd said no without apologizing. I'd set a boundary without cushioning it in justifications and explanations, and please don't be angry diplomacy. and it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, not sure if I was about to fly or fall. The Meridian Tech building appeared through the rain, 15 stories of glass and steel, modern architecture designed to look innovative and inviting. I'd been here twice before, first for the initial interview, then for the technical assessment. Both times I'd felt the same flutter of hope, the same careful optimism. This was it, the big opportunity, the career leap. I parked in the visitor lot with 4 minutes to spare, grabbed my portfolio, checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. Professional, composed. No visible evidence of having been shoved into a wall 20 minutes earlier. Except my eyes. My eyes looked different, harder maybe, or just tired. I ran through the rain to the entrance. The lobby was all clean lines and natural light, even in the storm. A receptionist looked up as I approached, water dripping from my coat. "Daniel Harper," I said. "I have an 11 o'clock with Miranda Chen in the executive team." She smiled. "You're right on time. Let me call up." I was not right on time. I was breathless and soaked and still processing what had happened in my kitchen. But I was here. I'd made the choice to be here. The elevator ride to the 14th floor gave me 90 seconds to center myself, to push Richard's words into a box I could deal with later, to focus on what mattered right now. Miranda Chen was waiting when the doors opened, mid-40s, sharp suit, the kind of presence that commands rooms without raising her voice. We'd built a good rapport over the previous interviews. She'd appreciated my portfolio, my approach to project management, my ability to translate between technical teams and executives. "Daniel," she extended her hand. "Good to see you. Quite a morning for it." "The rain?" I managed to smile. "I've driven through worse." I meant the commute. Google Maps shows accidents all over I-85. I took the back roads. "Smart." She gestured down the hall. The teams assembled in conference room B. "Before we go in, how are you feeling?" It was a loaded question. How was I feeling? Like my marriage was imploding. Like I just discovered my wife's family saw me as disposable. Like I'd made a choice that might cost me everything. "Ready," I said. "Good, because I'll be honest, you're our top choice. Have been since the technical assessment. This is really about the team getting comfortable with fit, culture, making sure you're someone they want to work with long term." Hope bloomed in my chest, dangerous and bright. "I appreciate that. Don't thank me yet. Engineering director is tough, asks hard questions. If you can handle Marcus, you're golden." She led me into a conference room where 5 people waited around a sleek table. Introductions, handshakes, names I'd researched. Marcus Bennett, the engineering director. Priya Sharma, lead developer. James Coe, operations. Alexis Wright, CEO. And Daniel Singh, yes, another Daniel, from HR. The interview began. If you've ever done a high-stakes interview, you know the feeling, like you're performing and being genuine simultaneously, calculating and spontaneous, professional and personable. Every answer matters. Every pause is analyzed. Marcus asked about conflict resolution. I told him about a project where 2 senior developers had deadlocked over architecture, how I'd facilitated a solution that incorporated both their concerns. Priya asked about technical knowledge. I walked through my understanding of their stack, asked questions about their deployment process, their testing protocols. James wanted to know about budget management. I showed him a case study from my portfolio, a project that had come in 15% under budget through strategic negotiation with vendors. Alexis asked the killer question, the one I should have expected but somehow didn't. Why Meridian Tech? Why now? What are you looking for that you're not getting in your current role? I could have given the rehearsed answer, the one about professional growth and exciting challenges in alignment with company values. Instead, I told the truth. I'm looking for a place where my work matters, I said, where my contributions are valued not just in theory, but in practice, where the expectation is excellence, not accommodation, where I'm seen as essential, not optional. Something shifted in the room. I saw Alexis and Miranda exchange a glance. Those are strong words, Alexis said. Essential versus optional. I've been optional my entire career, I said. I've been the person who stays late, who takes on extra projects, who covers when others need flexibility. And that's fine. That's part of being a team player. But I've also been the person whose needs get deferred, whose development gets postponed, who's told maybe next quarter while watching others advance. Marcus leaned forward. And you think that wouldn't happen here? I think your reputation suggests otherwise. I think Meridian's track record with retention and promotion indicates you invest in people who deliver results. I think the questions you have asked today show you care about finding the right fit, not just filling a seat. Priya smiled. That's a diplomatic way of saying your current company doesn't appreciate you. It's a diplomatic way of saying I'm ready for something more. The interview continued. Technical scenarios, behavioral questions, a case study they'd sent me the day before, asking me to present my approach. I talked about project life cycles and stakeholder management in agile methodologies. I drew diagrams on the whiteboard. I answered their challenges, asked my own questions, engaged in the kind of intellectual sparring that reminded me why I'd chosen this career in the first place. And for 90 minutes, I forgot about Sarah, about Richard, about the smirk on my wife's face as her father shoved me into a wall. For 90 minutes, I was just Daniel Harper, project manager, problem solver, someone whose work mattered. When it ended, Miranda walked me back to the elevator. That was excellent, she said, really excellent. I can't make promises until the team debriefs, but I think you should feel very good about this. Thank you. Can I ask you something off the record? I nodded. That answer about being essential versus optional, that came from somewhere real. Are you okay? For a second, I considered lying. Professional distance. Don't bring personal drama to a job interview. But Miranda's expression was genuine, concerned, and I was so tired of performing. I'm in the middle of something complicated, I said, but I'm handling it. Complicated like might affect your availability complicated? Because if you're dealing with something that would impact your start date or, no, complicated like I might be getting divorced. Her eyes widened slightly. I'm sorry. Don't be, it's clarifying. The elevator arrived. I stepped in, pressed the button for the lobby. We'll be in touch, Miranda said. Soon. The doors closed. I made it to the parking lot before I checked my phone. 47 missed calls, 63 text messages, 12 voicemails. I scrolled through the preview of texts without opening them. Sarah, come home, we need to talk. Sarah, you're being ridiculous. Richard, call me immediately. Sarah, my lawyer says we can file tomorrow. Emma, this is so dramatic. Just drive me to the mall. Sarah's mom, Diane. Honey, I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding. Richard, you've made a serious mistake. Sarah, I can't believe you're choosing a job over our marriage. Sarah, fine. See what happens when you defy this family. I sat in my car, rain drumming on the roof, and felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not fear, just a strange, hollow calm. I drove home. The house was silent when I returned. Not the peaceful kind of silence, the aggressive kind. The silence that's actually an accusation, a statement, a punishment. Sarah's car was gone. So was the wedding photo from the hallway, the one that had rattled when Richard shoved me. In its place, a pale rectangle on the wall marked where it had hung for 5 years. I walked through the rooms, cataloging what else had disappeared. Her laptop, the designer purse I'd bought her for our anniversary, the jewelry box from her dresser, half the clothes from the closet, prescription bottles from the medicine cabinet. She hadn't packed everything. This wasn't a move out. This was a statement, a strategic withdrawal, taking what mattered to her, leaving what didn't. Leaving me to imagine her sorting through our shared life, deciding what was worth taking. On the kitchen counter, a note, I'm staying at my parents'. We need space. Don't contact me until you're ready to apologize. No love, no please. Just the expectation that I would come crawling back, contrite and repentant, ready to accept my role in the hierarchy. I read it twice, crumpled it, threw it in the trash. Then I retrieved it, smoothed it out, and took a photo. Something told me I'd need documentation later. Evidence of who said what, who did what, who walked away first. My phone buzzed. Richard, I answered. You need to get your ass over here right now, he said without preamble. No hello, no pretense of civility. No. Excuse me? I said no, I'm not coming to your house to be berated. If Sarah wants to talk, she can come home. Sarah is home. She's with her family, where she belongs, where she's protected from. From what? Her husband? The man who's worked himself half to death trying to provide for her? From your selfishness, your complete disregard for what matters in this family. I laughed. It came out bitter. Right, what matters? Let me guess, Emma got her ride to the mall? Of course she did. Diane took her, because that's what family does. They show up for each other. And where was family when I needed to get to my interview? When my career, our financial future was on the line? That interview was a luxury, Daniel. Family is a necessity. A luxury. I felt that crack widen further. $160,000 salary is a luxury. If you were half the man you think you are, you would already be making that kind of money. You wouldn't need to grovel to some tech company for... I wasn't groveling. I was interviewing for a position I'm qualified for, that I earned through years of work, and yet you still need them to decide you're good enough. That's the difference between you and Emma. Emma doesn't wait for permission. She takes what she wants. By having Daddy call in favors, the silence on the other end was sharp, dangerous. What did you say? Emma's interview at Sterling Properties. That's Tom Sterling's company, right? Your golf buddy? The guy who owes you for that introduction to the McAllister development deal. How do you... I pay attention, Richard. I know exactly how Emma's empire is being built. On your connections, your reputation, your money. She's not a visionary. She's a nepotism hire with a good last name. You son of a... And that's fine. Use your connections. That's how the world works. But don't pretend it's the same as what I'm doing. I don't have a rich father-in-law making calls. I don't have a legacy to trade on. I have my work, my skills, my ability to deliver results. And if I have to grovel a little to prove that, fine. At least I'm proving something I actually did. Richard's breathing was heavy on the other end. You're going to regret this. Maybe, but at least I won't regret missing my interview to buy your daughter a designer outfit she doesn't need for a job she's already guaranteed. Get to my house in the next hour, apologize to Emma, to Sarah, and to me, and we might let you save your marriage. Or what? You'll make Sarah divorce me? She already threatened that. Oh, we'll do more than threaten. We'll bury you legally, financially, socially. Every connection I have in this city, every favor I'm owed. I will use all of it to make sure you understand what it means to disrespect this family. Then I guess we're done talking. I hung up. My hand was shaking. My heart was racing. But I felt something else too, something I hadn't felt in years, relief. I walked through the empty house, room by room, our bedroom, where Sarah's things were half-packed, drawers hanging open like accusations. The guest room that was supposed to become a nursery someday, still empty, still waiting for a future that now seemed impossibly distant. The home office where I'd spent countless nights working while Sarah watched TV, not because I loved the work, but because the overtime helped cover her shopping trips, her spa days, her expectation of a lifestyle my salary couldn't quite fund. I'd been running on a treadmill, I realized, working harder and harder to stay in place, to meet expectations that kept rising, to prove myself to people who had already decided I wasn't enough. When had I accepted that? When had I agreed that my worth was measured by my usefulness to the Caldwell family? My phone buzzed again. Not Richard this time. Miranda Chen. My heart stopped. I answered. Hello? Daniel, hi. I wanted to reach you before end of business. She sounded happy, excited even. The team loved you. We'd like to extend an offer. The words didn't quite land. I heard them, but they felt unreal. You, what? We'd like to offer you the senior project manager position. Salary $160,000 plus benefits package, stock options, and a signing bonus. We can send the formal offer letter tomorrow, but I wanted to give you the news directly. What do you think? What did I think? I thought my wife had left me. I thought my father-in-law had physically assaulted me and threatened to destroy my career. I thought I'd spent 5 years of my life trying to earn the approval of people who saw me as disposable. And I thought, standing in my empty house, phone pressed to my ear, that maybe walking out this morning had been the best decision I'd ever made. I think, my voice cracked. I cleared my throat. I think yes, absolutely yes, thank you. Fantastic. We're thrilled to have you. When can you start? I'll need to give 2 weeks notice at my current position. Of course, we'll target 3 weeks from Monday then. December 2nd. Sound good? Perfect. Excellent. Expect the offer letter tomorrow morning. Welcome to Meridian Tech, Daniel. She hung up. I stood in the middle of my living room, my empty living room, and let the reality wash over me. I'd gotten the job, the huge promotion, the salary increase, the career leap I'd been chasing for 3 years, and I had no one to tell. Sarah was gone. Her family hated me. My own parents were retired in Arizona, would answer if I called, but wouldn't really understand. My friends were, when had I last maintained friendships that weren't filtered through Sarah's social circle? I was alone. I was alone, and I'd just gotten the best news of my professional life, and there was no one to celebrate with. The realization should have hurt more than it did. Instead, it felt like the truth. Clean, clear, undeniable. I opened my laptop, started making lists. Things I needed to do: give notice at current job, find a divorce attorney, document everything from this morning, change passwords on shared accounts, separate finances, figure out what the hell happens to the house. The list grew. Practical things, legal things, the scaffolding of a life being dismantled. My phone buzzed. Sarah, you have until midnight to come apologize. After that, I'm filing. I stared at the text for a long time. Then I typed back, file. I hit send before I could second guess it. 3 dots appeared immediately. Sarah typing, stopping, typing again. You don't mean that. I do. Daniel, think about what you're doing. Think about us. I am. That's the problem. What's that supposed to mean? I didn't answer. Instead, I opened a new text to a law firm I'd Googled, Hendricks and Associates, specializing in family law. Their reviews were good. Their consultation was free. Need to schedule a consultation regarding divorce proceedings. Available tomorrow? The response came within minutes. We have a 2 p.m. slot. See you then. I confirmed. Sarah called. I declined. She called again. Declined. A text from Emma. My brother would never treat me like this. I almost laughed. Sarah didn't have a brother. Emma was either drunk texting or trying some psychological manipulation she'd learned from Richard. Another text from Richard. Last chance. Get over here or face the consequences. I put my phone on silent. Sat in the quiet, listened to the rain finally starting to let up outside, the storm moving on, leaving everything washed clean. And for the first time in 5 years, I felt like I could breathe. The divorce attorney's office was not what I expected. I'd pictured something sleek and intimidating, glass, chrome, the visual language of corporate warfare. Instead, Hendricks and Associates occupied the second floor of a converted brownstone. All warm wood and plants in the waiting area, art that looked like actual art rather than stock photography of Justice Scales. The receptionist was kind, offered me coffee, told me Judith Hendricks would be with me shortly. I'd barely slept the night before. After sending the text to Sarah, file, I'd spent hours documenting everything. Writing down what Richard had said, word for word, photographing the wall where he'd shoved me. No visible damage, but I documented it anyway. Screenshotting text messages, pulling bank statements, the paper trail of a marriage dissolving. At some point around 2 a.m., I'd realized something. I'd been keeping receipts for years without knowing it. Every time Sarah asked me to skip a work event for a family dinner. Every time Richard borrowed money for Emma's expenses. Every time I'd compromised my career for their convenience. I had emails, calendar invites I'd decline with notes like family obligation or need to help with Emma. Text chains showing Sarah dismissing my concerns about money while planning expensive vacations. I had evidence of a pattern I'd been too close to see. Mr. Harper, I looked up. Judith Hendricks was mid-50s, graying hair pulled back, wearing a cardigan over a blouse, reading glasses on a chain. She looked more like a favorite professor than a legal warrior. That, I would learn, was by design. "Thank you for seeing me on short notice," I said, following her into her office. "Of course," she gestured to a chair across from her desk. "Your message mentioned divorce proceedings. Tell me what's going on." I told her everything. The interview, Emma's mall trip, Richard's assault, Sarah's ultimatum, the whole absurd, painful sequence of events that had led me from married to separated in under 24 hours. Judith listened without interrupting, taking notes in a legal pad, her expression neutral. When I finished, she set down her pen. "Okay," she said. "First question, are you sure? About the divorce?" "About all of it, about walking away from 5 years of marriage over one incident, however egregious. Because the courts, your friends, even you in 6 months, everyone will ask that question. Was this one bad day or a pattern?" "It's a pattern," I said. "This morning was just the first time I saw it clearly." "Good. Then let's talk about what pattern you can prove." She pulled out a fresh legal pad. "North Carolina is an equitable distribution state, which means marital assets get divided fairly. Apparently, not necessarily equally. We'll need to document what you brought into the marriage, what was accumulated during, and any separate property." "You said you bought the house before you were married." "Yes, I'd saved for years, put down 20%. She moved in after the wedding, but the deed is in my name only." "That helps. The house is likely separate property, though she may be entitled to some equity if marital funds went to the mortgage. We'll need those statements." "What else?" "Cars, mine is paid off, titled to me, hers is leased, but I've been making the payments." "Bank accounts?" "Joint checking. My paycheck goes in, her charges come out. I have a separate savings account from before we married that she doesn't have access to, about 45,000 in it." Judith's eyebrow raised. "She doesn't know about it?" "She knows it exists. She doesn't know how much is in it. I've been preparing, not consciously for divorce, but for something. An emergency fund that was just mine." "Smart. Don't touch it. Don't mention it unless asked directly." "What about retirement accounts?" 401k through my employer, about 120,000. Started it before we married, but I've contributed throughout." "She'll be entitled to the marital portion. We can calculate that." "Credit cards?" "2 in my name, 1 joint. Total debt around 15,000. Mostly her shopping." Judith made notes. "Student loans?" "Paid off. I finished paying mine off the year we got married. Sarah didn't go to college." "Income disparity?" "I make 75,000 currently. Starting December 2nd, it jumps to 160. Sarah doesn't work." "Never?" "She worked retail for about 6 months after we met, hated it. Quit when we got engaged. Her father convinced me it was better for her to focus on building our home, managing the household." "And did she manage the household?" "I thought about the cleaning service that came twice a week, the meal delivery kits, the way I still did laundry, still paid bills, still handled everything that required actual work." "Not really." "Any children?" "No." "Was that a mutual decision?" "She said she wanted to wait until we were more stable financially." Which in retrospect meant waiting until I made enough to fund the lifestyle she wanted while also raising kids. Judith's expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Recognition, maybe, or pity. "All right, here's the legal landscape. North Carolina requires a year of separation before you can file for absolute divorce. That year starts when one of you moves out with the intent to remain separate. Has Sarah indicated she's moved out permanently?" I pulled out my phone, showed her Sarah's text. "I'm staying at my parents'. We need space." "That's not permanent," Judith said. "That's temporary. Unless she files for legal separation or you do, this is just a marital spat as far as the courts are concerned." "So I'm supposed to just wait a year? Or file for legal separation now? That starts the clock. It also establishes your intent, that this isn't a fight you're trying to reconcile after, but a genuine end to the marriage." File it. You're sure? Because once we file, this gets real, expensive, contentious. Her father sounds like someone who will lawyer up with the best firm he can find. I'm sure. Judith nodded. Then let's talk strategy. Her family has money, connections. From what you have described, they'll come at you hard. They'll try to paint you as abandoning your wife over a trivial incident. They'll use the optics. You refused to help your sister-in-law. You walked out during a fight. You're the bad guy. But Richard assaulted me. You didn't call the police. You didn't go to the ER. You have no witnesses except family members who will side with him. It's he said, she said, and he's a respected businessman with deep pockets. So what do I do? You build a better narrative. You document everything. You don't engage in fights or arguments. You communicate only through attorneys. You make yourself bulletproof. She leaned forward. Here's what I need you to do. First, write down everything. Every incident where they prioritized their needs over yours. Every time money was spent on Emma or Sarah's wants while your needs got deferred. Every family event you attended instead of career opportunities. Every guilt trip, every manipulation, every time they made you feel like you weren't enough. That's going to be a long document. Good. Make it comprehensive. Dates, hymns, specific quotes where possible. This becomes our evidence of a pattern of financial and emotional exploitation. Second, she continued, separate your finances. Today, open a new checking account at a different bank. Have your paycheck rerouted to it. Leave enough in the joint account for any automatic payments, but nothing more. Won't that make me look bad, taking all the money? You're protecting your income. She has her parents' resources. You have yourself. That's not punitive, it's practical. Third, document all communication. Every time, every email, every voicemail. Don't delete anything, even if it's nasty, especially if it's nasty. We need to show their pattern of behavior. Fourth, don't argue with them. Don't engage. If Richard threatens you again, you thank him for making his position clear and end the conversation. If Sarah begs you to come back, you tell her you're consulting with your attorney and can't discuss it. You become boring. Unproductive to fight with. And fifth, she paused, you might want to consider whether Richard's assault constitutes grounds for a criminal complaint. I'm not saying you should file one, but the fact that you have that option, that's leverage. You want me to threaten him. I want you to be aware of all your options. What you do with that awareness is your choice. We spent another hour going over details. Retainer fees, $3,000, which would hurt, but I could manage. Timeline, the year separation, then filing, then negotiations, then court if it came to that, 18 months minimum. Likely outcomes. I'd keep the house, my retirement, my separate savings. She'd get alimony for a few years, maybe some portion of marital assets. But given the short marriage and no kids, nothing catastrophic. When I left Hendrickson Associates, I had a folder full of forms to fill out, a clear plan of action, and a strange sense of clarity. This was happening. My marriage was ending, and I was okay with that. I stopped at a coffee shop on the way home, ordered a latte, sat by the window and watched people pass by on the sidewalk, living their lives, wrapped up in their own dramas and joys and mundane concerns. Nobody looked at me. Nobody knew that my life was imploding. There was something freeing about that, about being anonymous in my own crisis. My phone buzzed. Not Sarah this time. My mother. I'd texted her the basics last night. Sarah and I are separating. It's complicated. I'm okay. We'll call soon. Her response, call me when you can. We love you. I called. Danny. Her voice was warm, concerned, maternal in a way that made my throat tight. Are you all right? I'm fine, Mom. Your text scared me. What happened? I gave her the abbreviated version, the interview, the confrontation, the separation. Oh, honey, she sighed. I wish I could say I was surprised. What? Your father and we've had concerns about Sarah, about her family, the way they treated you. You never said anything. You seemed happy, or happy enough. We thought maybe we were reading things wrong, that it was different from the inside. But the few times we visited, the way her father talked to you, Danny, we didn't like it. I felt something crack open in my chest. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have listened? You were in love. You'd made your choice. We weren't going to be those parents who criticize your spouse. We were trying to be supportive. I wish you'd said something. I know, I'm sorry, but you're out now. That's what matters. You saw the truth and you walked away. That takes courage. It feels more like stubbornness. Sometimes those are the same thing. I heard Dad's voice in the background, asking questions. Mom relayed information. Your father wants to know if you need money. I'm okay. I got the the big one I interviewed for. Danny, that's wonderful. Her joy was genuine, uncomplicated by the mess of the divorce. When do you start? December 2nd. If I can survive the next 3 weeks at my current job, I'll be fine. You'll survive. You're a survivor. You've always been. We talked for another 20 minutes. About logistics, about Thanksgiving, which was in a week. Did I want to fly to Arizona? No, I'd stay here. Get my affairs in order. About whether they should come to me. Not yet, but soon. When we hung up, I felt lighter, seen, validated. My parents had noticed. They'd known something was wrong. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I drove home, walked into my empty house, started packing up Sarah's remaining things into boxes, careful and methodical, creating clear lines of separation. My phone rang, Richard again. This time I answered. Daniel. His voice was controlled, too controlled. We need to discuss this situation like adults. I'm listening. Sarah is devastated. Emma is upset. The whole family is in turmoil because of your tantrum. My tantrum was saying no to driving Emma to the mall. Your assault was throwing me into a wall. Silence. I want you to know, Richard said slowly, that I have connections in this city. Deep connections, business, legal, social. If you push this divorce, if you try to embarrass this family, I will make your life very difficult. Judith Hendricks said you might threaten me. Who? My divorce attorney. She's excellent, by the way. Very thorough. We spent a lot of time discussing North Carolina assault laws. Did you know that assault is a Class 1 misdemeanor in this state? Can carry up to 150 days in jail. You wouldn't dare. I have witnesses. Sarah saw you do it. Emma saw you do it. I have the text from right after, where you continued to threaten me. I have documentation. Sarah and Emma would never testify against me. Maybe not, but the texts exist. The pattern exists. And I'm just saying it's an option I have if things get ugly. More silence. What do you want? Richard asked finally. I want to be left alone. I want a clean divorce. I want Sarah to get reasonable support for a reasonable time while she figures out her life. And I want your family to stay out of my business. And if we don't, then I file a police report. I give interviews about Richard Caldwell's family values. I make sure everyone who works with you knows what kind of man you are when the doors are closed. That's extortion. No, it's boundaries. There's a difference. I hung up. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. I'd just threatened Richard Caldwell. Actually threatened him. And it felt good. I pulled out the document Judith had asked me to write, opened my laptop, started typing. Incident log, Daniel and Sarah Harper. Marriage date, November 2019. Sarah asked me to skip important client meeting to attend her mother's birthday lunch. When I say I can't, she cries and says I don't value her family. I reschedule the meeting. Lose the client. Date, March 2020. Richard offers to invest in my friend Marcus's startup if I convince Marcus to bring him on as advisor. Marcus agrees. Richard provides no actual advising, takes 10% equity. Marcus's startup fails within a year. Friendship strained. Date, July 2020. Sarah signs us up for country club membership without consulting me. Cost, $15,000 annually. When I object, her father says successful men are members. I pay the fee. The document grew. Page after page, incident after incident, a pattern documented, evidence of who I'd been, who they'd wanted me to be, and proof that I was done being that person. Thanksgiving arrived gray and cold. I woke up in my own bed, still strange to think of it that way. My bed. not our bed, and lay there for a moment listening to the silence. No Sarah, no expectation of driving to her parents' house for the Caldwell family Thanksgiving extravaganza. No performance required. The relief was complicated by loneliness, but relief nonetheless. My phone showed 3 text messages. Mom, wishing me happy Thanksgiving. My brother Jake from Seattle, same. And Sarah, it's not too late. You can still come to dinner. We can work this out. I deleted it without responding. The past week had been a masterclass in holding boundaries. Sarah had tried everything: tears via voicemail, anger via text, bargaining via her mother, who'd called to suggest marriage counseling. Richard had gone quiet after our last conversation, which worried me more than his threats had. Emma had posted on Instagram a selfie with Sarah, both of them looking sad, caption, "When family drama ruins the holidays. Supportive family our sisters forever." I'd blocked her. Work had been awkward. I'd given my notice, 2 weeks that felt like 2 years. My manager had been understanding. Meridian Tech is a great opportunity. But word had gotten around. People knew something was happening in my personal life. They could see it in my face, hear it in my voice. I'd kept my head down. Documented handoff procedures. Stayed late to make sure nothing fell through the cracks. Professional, reliable. Daniel Harper, consistent to the end. But inside I was counting down. 9 more days, then I'd be free. Now it was Thanksgiving and I had nowhere to be. I got up, made coffee, scrambled eggs, ate at the kitchen counter, scrolling through my phone, avoiding the news and social media. Around noon, I went for a walk. The neighborhood was quiet. Everyone inside with their families, their turkey and stuffing and performances of gratitude. I passed the Henderson house with its decorative pilgrims on the lawn. The Martinez family's place, with cars packed in the driveway, sounds of laughter spilling into the street. Normal people, normal Thanksgivings. I ended up at a park near the house, sat on a bench, watched ducks paddle around the pond, oblivious to holidays and human drama. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something, instinct, curiosity made me. Daniel Harper? Speaking. This is Tom Sterling. I believe you're married to Sarah Caldwell? My stomach dropped. Tom Sterling, Sterling Properties. Emma's interview. Separated from, I corrected. What can I do for you, Mr. Sterling? I wanted to reach out personally. Richard Caldwell is an old friend. He's told me about the difficulties between you and Sarah. I'm sure he has. He mentioned you've been spreading some concerning allegations about how I conduct business, about nepotism. Ah, there it was. I haven't been spreading anything, I said carefully. I made an observation during a private conversation about how professional connections work. If Richard interpreted that as an allegation, that's his issue. Nevertheless, I want to be clear. Emma Caldwell earned her position at Sterling Properties. She interviewed. She demonstrated skills and potential. Her family connection may have gotten her in the door, but she's keeping the we on her own merit. I'm glad to hear it. Are we going to have a problem, Mr. Harper? Not unless you make one. I'm not interested in your business practices. I'm not interested in Emma's career. I'm interested in getting divorced and moving on with my life. Richard seems to think you might cause trouble. Richard assaulted me in my own home. He's lucky I haven't filed a police report. If he's worried about trouble, he might want to look in a mirror. Silence on the other end. Then, I see. Is there anything else, Mr. Sterling? Just a piece of advice, man to man. The Caldwells are a powerful family in this city. Richard has a long memory. If I were you, I'd be very careful about making enemies. I didn't make an enemy. I set a boundary. There's a difference. Perhaps, but the outcome might be the same. He hung up. I sat on the bench, phone in my hand, anger simmering in my chest. They were circling the wagons. Consolidating power. Making sure I understood my place in the social hierarchy. Except I didn't care about their hierarchy anymore. I walked home, spent the afternoon cleaning, reorganizing, creating order in the physical space as everything else fell apart. Around 4, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. Diane, Sarah's mother, I considered not answering, but Diane had always been the gentlest of the Caldwells, the one who smoothed over Richard's roughness, who mediated between Sarah and Emma, who sent birthday cards and remembered preferences. I opened the door. Daniel. She smiled, but it was sent. Happy Thanksgiving. Diane. May I come in? I stepped aside. She entered, carrying a Tupperware container. I brought you a plate, turkey, stuffing, the works. I thought, well, you shouldn't be alone on Thanksgiving. The kindness caught me off guard. I took the container. Thank you. Can we talk? We sat in the living room, Diane on the couch, me in the armchair, a safe distance. Sarah is devastated, she began. So am I. She loves you, Daniel. She really does. She's confused. She doesn't understand why you're doing this. I'm doing this because her father threw me into a wall and she smirked about it. Diane flinched. Richard shouldn't have done that. I told him so. But you have to understand he was trying to teach you about family, about priorities. By assaulting me? By showing you that sometimes we have to sacrifice for the people we love. I sacrifice constantly. I've spent 5 years sacrificing. My career, my time, my identity, all to try to be good enough for a family that will never think I am. That's not true, Diane. I leaned forward. Do you know how many family events I've attended in the past 5 years? How many dinners? How many golf tournaments? How many charity galas where I smiled and networked and played my part? You were being a good husband, a good son-in-law. I was being useful. There's a difference, Orbance. She looked down at her hands. Richard can be forceful, I know that, but he means well. He wants what's best for the family. What about what's best for me? You're part of the family. No, I'm married to the family. That's not the same thing. We sat in silence for a moment. What would it take, Diane asked quietly, for you to come back, to try again? I don't know that anything would. But if there was something, some compromise, some way forward. I thought about it, really thought about it. An apology, I said finally. From Richard, a real one. Not a I'm sorry you were offended non-apology. An actual acknowledgement that he was wrong. That what he did was assault. That I deserve better. I can ask him. And boundaries, real boundaries. About Sarah and Emma's expectations. About my career. About my right to say no without being punished for it. That's reasonable. And therapy, couples therapy. Because the problems in my marriage didn't start this week. They've been building for years. Sarah and I have different values, different priorities, different ideas about what partnership means. Diane nodded slowly. I'll talk to them. I'll try to make them understand. Don't try too hard. I'm okay with how this ends. She looked up, surprised. You really mean that? I do. You're not just hurt. You're not trying to punish her. No, I'm just done. I'm done performing. I'm done trying to earn approval from people who will never give it. I'm done being the supporting character in someone else's story. Diane stood, smoothed her skirt. You've changed. I've clarified. Sarah won't take this well when she realizes you're serious. I know. She'll fight. Richard will fight. They don't like to lose. Neither do I, not anymore. Diane moved to the door, paused. For what it's worth, Daniel, I think you're braver than you know. Walking away from a family like ours, from the security, the connections, the life Sarah offered. It takes courage. Or desperation. Sometimes those are the same thing. She left. I ate the Thanksgiving dinner she'd brought. Turkey and stuffing and cranberry sauce. Still warm, it was delicious. I ate alone at my kitchen table, in sweatpants and a t-shirt, no performance required. And it was the best Thanksgiving I'd had in years. December 2nd arrived cold and clear. My first day at Meridian Tech. I'd spent the weekend preparing, reviewing the employee handbook, setting up my laptop, laying out clothes. Professional but not stiff, confident but approachable. The costume of someone who belonged in their new life. Sarah had gone quiet the past week. No texts, no calls. Her lawyer had sent a letter to Judith, formal and cold, outlining initial demands. Alimony, portion of retirement, half the value of the house. Judith had responded with our counteroffer, much less generous. Now we waited. I drove to the Meridian Tech building through early morning traffic, sipping coffee from a travel mug, listening to a podcast about project management frameworks. Normal, productive, moving forward. The parking garage was underground, sleek and modern. My badge worked on the first try, a small victory that felt disproportionately good. I found my assigned spot, 107B, next to a Tesla and a Prius, parked and rode the elevator to the 14th floor. Miranda Chen was waiting in the lobby. "Daniel, welcome." She shook my hand, warm and genuine. "How are you feeling?" "Ready?" "Good, let's get you situated." She led me through glass doors into an open office space, all clean lines and natural light, standing desks and collaborative pods, the physical manifestation of innovative workplace culture. My desk was in the corner, window view, already set up with monitors and a laptop. "Your team is in at 9, Miranda said. "You've got about 20 minutes. Coffee's in the kitchen, bagels and fruit. Help yourself." "Any questions?" "Just one. What's my first priority?" She smiled. "Dive into the Cordoba project. It's been struggling, missed deadlines, scope creep, team friction. Previous PM quit 3 weeks ago. We need someone to stabilize it fast. Timeline? Client presentation in 6 weeks. Deliverable in 8. It's ambitious. I'll make it work." "I know you will. That's why you're here." She left me to settle in. I spent the next 15 minutes exploring my digital workspace, project management software, communication channels, documentation repositories. Everything was organized, professional, exactly what I needed. At 9, my team started arriving. Priya Sharma first, carrying a massive coffee. "Harper, you survived day 1 orientation." "Barely. It only gets weirder from here. Welcome to the cult." Then Marcus Bentita, the engineering director who'd grilled me in the interview. "Ready to fix my disaster project?" "Is it actually a disaster?" "Oh yeah, complete shit show. But if anyone can save it, Miranda thinks it's you." No pressure. Tons of pressure. That's the cue. The morning disappeared into meetings, team introductions, project briefings, code reviews and timeline assessments, and stakeholder management. By lunch, my head was spinning with information, but I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Engaged, challenged, valued. I grabbed a sandwich from the cafeteria, also sleek and modern, also free, ate at my desk while reviewing Cordoba project documentation. The previous PM's notes were scattered, incomplete. The team was talented but directionless. The client was growing impatient. Classic rescue scenario. I pulled out a fresh notebook, started mapping, project lifecycle, current status, blockers, dependencies, risk factors. By 3 p.m., I had a draft recovery plan. By 5, I'd scheduled one-on-ones with each team member for the next day. By 6, I'd sent a status update to Miranda and the executive team. I was the last one in the office when I finally packed up. Drove home through evening traffic, exhausted but satisfied. My house was dark when I arrived. Empty. Still weird to come home to silence. I made dinner, pasta, salad, nothing fancy. Ate while catching up on news. Avoided social media. Around 8, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but the area code was local. "Hello? Mr. Harper? This is Detective Lisa Washington with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. Do you have a moment?" My stomach dropped. "Yes?" "I'm calling regarding an incident report filed this afternoon. Domestic dispute, assault allegations. Your name came up." "I didn't file a report." "No, sir, you didn't. Sarah Caldwell did. She's alleging that you assaulted her during an argument on November 12th. She's requesting a protective order." The world tilted. That's not what happened." "Can you tell me what did happen?" I could barely breathe. "Her father assaulted me. Richard Caldwell. He threw me into a wall. Sarah was there. She saw it. She witnessed him do it." "And did you report this assault?" No, I was advised by my attorney that without independent witnesses it would be hard to prove. But now Ms. Caldwell is alleging you assaulted her. She's lying. Sir, I understand you're upset. Detective, I have text messages, documentation, a timeline. Her father threatened me. I have recordings of his threats. I have witness testimony from my divorce attorney that I reported the assault to her the same day it happened. Sarah is making this up because her family is losing control of the narrative. Silence on the other end. I'd like you to come in, Detective Washington said finally. Tomorrow, if possible. Bring your documentation. Let's get your side on record. Am I being charged with anything? Not currently, but Ms. Caldwell's allegations are serious. We need to investigate. I'll be there. What time? 10 a.m., police headquarters downtown. I'll be there. I hung up, sat in my kitchen, hands shaking, rage building. Sarah had filed a false police report. Sarah, who'd stood there and watched her father assault me, who'd smirked about it, was now claiming I'd assaulted her. They were playing hardball. I called Judith. They filed a false police report, I said when she answered. Sarah's claiming I assaulted her. Deep breath. Tell me everything. I did. The detective's call, the allegations, the protective order request. Okay, Judith said when I finished. This is bad but manageable. First, you're going to that meeting tomorrow with every piece of documentation we have. Timeline, text messages, your initial report to me, everything. What if they don't believe me? They will, because your story has been consistent from day one. You reported the assault to me immediately. You have documentation. Sarah's story is appearing 3 weeks later, conveniently when divorce proceedings are heating up. Any competent detective will see that. What about the protective order? We'll fight it. But Daniel, you need to understand, this is going to get uglier before it gets better. The Caldwells are playing every card they have. False allegations, social pressure, legal warfare. They're trying to destroy you. I know. Can you handle this? The new job, the divorce, now a criminal investigation? Could I? I thought about my first day at Meridian Tech. The engaging work, the respect, the feeling of being valued. I thought about my empty house, my freedom, the life I was building without the Caldwells' approval. Yes, I said. I can handle it. Good, because we're just getting started. The Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department headquarters was exactly as grim as expected. I arrived 15 minutes early, carrying a folder thick with documentation. Judith had wanted to come with me, but I told her I could handle this alone. I needed to handle this alone, to stand on my own truth without a mediator. Detective Lisa Washington was younger than I'd expected, mid-30s, professional, with the kind of tired eyes that said she'd seen too much bullshit to be easily fooled. We sat in an interview room, gray walls, fluorescent lights, recording equipment on the table. Thank you for coming in, Mr. Harper. She activated the recorder, stated the date and time, identified both of us for the record. You understand this is regarding allegations made by Sarah Caldwell? I understand, and I'm here to tell you those allegations are false. Walk me through November 12th. I did, methodically, calmly. The interview request, Emma's mall trip, Sarah's demand, Richard's arrival. And then he pushed you into the wall, Detective Washington asked. Yes, his hand on my chest, hard enough to knock the air out of me, hard enough to rattle a picture frame on the wall behind me. Did you push back? Defend yourself physically? No, I was stunned. And honestly, I was processing that my father-in-law had just assaulted me in my own kitchen. What did Sarah do during this? She stood there, arms crossed, and when I looked at her, waiting for her to tell her father to stop, to defend me, she smirked. Smirked. A small smile, like this was satisfying to her, like I was finally learning my place. Detective Washington made notes. And you didn't report this assault at the time? I consulted with my divorce attorney that same afternoon. She advised that without independent witnesses, it would be difficult to prove. The only witnesses were Sarah and Emma, both of whom would likely support Richard's version. What was Richard's version? I don't know. I left before we could construct competing narratives. And now Sarah is alleging you assaulted her during this same incident, which is a lie. Why would she lie? Because her family is losing control. I filed for separation. I'm not backing down. I'm not apologizing. I'm not playing my assigned role anymore, and they can't accept that. That's a serious allegation, Mr. Harper, that a woman would file a false police report as retaliation. It's also the truth. I pulled out my documentation, laid it on the table. This is the timeline I provided to my attorney the same day the incident occurred. November 12th, written that evening. You'll see the timestamps on the document properties. This is my initial account before I had any reason to anticipate Sarah making counter-allegations. Detective Washington reviewed it. These are text messages from immediately after, Richard threatening me, Sarah demanding I apologize. No mention anywhere of me assaulting her, because it didn't happen. More review. This is the police report I considered filing but didn't. My attorney drafted it. You'll see the date, 3 weeks ago, documenting Richard's assault. Why didn't you file it? Because I wanted a clean divorce, not a war. I thought we could handle this like adults. I was wrong. Detective Washington sat back. You've been thorough. I'm a project manager. Documentation is what I do. Sarah's account is very different. She claims you became violent when she asked you to help her sister, that you shoved her against the kitchen counter, that she's been afraid of you since. Ask her for proof. Ask her for medical records. Ask her for text messages from that day where she expresses fear. Ask her why she waited 3 weeks to report this alleged assault. Ask her why her story only emerged after I filed for separation. I will. And ask her about the smirk. The smirk? When Richard assaulted me, Sarah found it satisfying. Ask her about that. Ask her why, if she was afraid of me, she seemed pleased when her father attacked me. Detective Washington's expression gave nothing away. Is there anything else you want to tell me? Just this, I'm not a violent person. I've never raised a hand to Sarah or anyone else. I've spent 5 years trying to be good enough for a family that sees me as disposable. And now that I'm walking away, they're trying to destroy me. But I have the truth, I have documentation, and I have the confidence that you'll see through this. We'll investigate thoroughly, both versions. That's all I ask. The interview concluded. I left the police station feeling drained but strangely calm. I believed in the process. I believed in the truth. Maybe I was naive. Maybe the Caldwell's money and connections would win. Maybe the system would fail me. But I'd done everything right. I'd documented everything. I'd told my truth clearly and consistently. The rest was out of my hands. I drove to work, spent the afternoon in back-to-back meetings for the Cordoba project. By evening, I had buy-in from the team on my recovery plan. By the end of the week, we'd recovered 2 weeks of lost time. Miranda Chen stopped by my desk Friday afternoon. I'm hearing good things, she said. The Cordoba team is energized. Priya says you're a miracle worker. Just organized. Don't undersell it. You've stabilized a disaster in 3 days. That's talent. I felt something warm in my chest, pride, validation. The recognition I'd been chasing for years finally delivered. Thank you. How are you doing? Generally, I know you mentioned some personal complications. I could have lied, kept it professional, but Miranda had been kind, and I was tired of performing. My soon-to-be ex-wife filed a false police report accusing me of assault. I spent yesterday morning being interviewed by detectives. Her eyes widened. Jesus. It's handled. I have documentation. The truth is on my side. Is there anything we can do? Company resources, legal support? I have a good attorney, but thank you. Well, if that changes, she paused. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're here. Whatever's happening in your personal life, you're killing it professionally. That means more than you know. She left. I finished out the day, drove home. My phone showed a voicemail from Detective Washington. Mr. Harper, this is Detective Washington. I wanted to update you. After interviewing Ms. Caldwell and reviewing both accounts, we've determined there's insufficient evidence to support her allegations. We will not be pursuing charges, and her request for a protective order has been denied. Your documentation was extremely thorough. Thank you for your cooperation. I played it twice, just to make sure I'd heard correctly. The false allegations had failed. The truth had won. I called Judith. They dropped it, I said. No charges, no protective order. I know. The detective called me too. Congratulations. What happens now? Now Sarah's attorney has a problem. Filing a false police report is serious. It undermines her credibility in the divorce proceedings. It makes her look vindictive, manipulative. Will she be charged? Unlikely. They'd have to prove she knowingly lied, which is hard, but it's in the record now. It's evidence of her character. It helps us. So we won? This round. But Daniel, they're going to come at you harder now. They're losing, and people like the Caldwells don't lose gracefully. Let them come. I'm done being afraid. Winter settled over Charlotte with unusual bite. By mid-December, the city was wrapped in cold that felt personal, vindictive. I drove to work through gray mornings, came home to empty evenings, built a life of routine and solitude that felt both lonely and necessary. Work was good. Great, actually. The Cordoba project was back on track. I'd earned respect from my team, trust from leadership, validation that I was exactly as capable as I'd always believed. The divorce, predictably, was getting uglier. Sarah's failed police report had been a turning point, not because it changed the legal landscape dramatically. Judith had been right that Sarah wouldn't face charges, but because it revealed desperation. The Caldwells were losing control of the narrative, and losers get reckless. Richard stopped calling me directly. Instead, his attacks went public. First, a post on LinkedIn, subtle, never naming me, but clearly directed. In business and life, integrity matters. Those who abandon family during challenging times reveal their true character. Grateful for the people who stay. 43 likes, 12 comments agreeing, professional contacts I'd cultivated over years, nodding along, not knowing the context. Then whispers in our social circle. Sarah's version of events, carefully curated. Daniel had changed, become cold, obsessed with work, refused to help family, walked out over nothing. The missing context, Richard's assault, the smirk, the years of being treated as disposable. People believe the first story they hear, especially when it's delivered with tears and wounded dignity. I lost friends. Couples we'd socialized with chose Sarah. Invitations dried up. Holiday parties I'd attended for years suddenly had limited space. I stopped caring. If your friendship is conditional on hearing only one side, you were never really a friend. The deposition was scheduled for December 18th. Sarah's attorney, a shark named Victoria Brennan, expensive and ruthless, wanted to establish the narrative early. Put me on record, lock me into a story she could then shred during the eventual trial, if it went to trial. Judith kept saying most divorces settle, but she also kept saying the Caldwells weren't most people. The deposition took place at Brennan's office. Sleek, downtown, the kind of place designed to intimidate. I arrived with Judith, wearing my best suit, carrying nothing but truth and documentation. The conference room was aggressively modern. Glass table, leather chairs, view of the city that was probably meant to make you feel small. Sarah was already there, sitting next to Victoria Brennan. She looked thinner, tired. Her hair was different, shorter, styled in a way I didn't recognize. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Victoria Brennan was exactly as advertised. 50s, immaculate, with the smile of someone who enjoyed dismantling people for a living. Mr. Harper, thank you for joining us. She gestured to a chair across from Sarah. Shall we begin? The court reporter set up. The recording started. Preliminaries. My name, address, occupation, marriage date. Then the real questions. Mr. Harper, you filed for separation on November 12th of this year. Is that correct? Yes. And what prompted this filing? A pattern of behavior that culminated in Richard Caldwell assaulting me in my home. That's your allegation. We'll return to that. I'm asking about the marriage itself. When did you first consider divorce? I thought carefully. I don't know that I can point to a specific date. The realization was gradual. But you must have thought about it before November 12th. In abstract terms, perhaps, the way anyone in an unhappy marriage occasionally thinks, what if? So you were unhappy. I was unfulfilled. Is there a difference? Yes, unhappiness suggests active misery. Unfulfillment suggests unrealized potential. Victoria smiled. How poetic. Let's talk about this unfulfillment. What specifically made you feel unfulfilled? The expectation that my needs, my career, my goals were always secondary to the Caldwell family's preferences. The Caldwell family? You mean your wife's family? Yes. Did Sarah ever explicitly tell you your career didn't matter? Not in those words. What words did she use? It was more implicit, actions, patterns, expectations that I would accommodate family needs while my own needs were negotiable. That's rather vague, Mr. Harper. Can you provide specific examples? And here we went, the trap. Get me to detail grievances, then paint me as petty. A man who kept score, who couldn't handle normal family obligations. But I'd prepared for this. In March 2020, Sarah signed us up for country club membership without consulting me. The annual fee was $15,000. When I expressed concern about the canon, Richard told me, successful men are members. I paid the fee, despite it straining our budget. You're upset about a country club membership? I'm using it as an example of a pattern where my financial boundaries were dismissed. Let's talk about money. You make or made $75,000 annually at your previous job. Correct. And Sarah didn't work. Correct. Did you resent supporting her? No, we'd agreed she would manage the household. But she didn't manage the household to your satisfaction? She didn't manage the household at all. We had cleaning services, meal delivery, outsourced everything. Sarah's role was less housewife and more unemployed dependent. Judith shot me a warning look. Too harsh. Victoria pounced. Unemployed dependent. That's a cruel characterization of your wife. It's an accurate one. Sarah chose not to work. That was fine. But the agreement was she'd contribute through household management. She didn't. So I worked full-time, managed the household, and funded a lifestyle I couldn't afford. And this made you angry. It made me feel used. Used. Victoria repeated the word like it was fascinating. Strong word. Did you ever discuss these feelings with Sarah? Many times. And what did she say? That I was being controlling, that her family's way of life was normal, that I needed to adjust my expectations. So communication broke down. Communication was fine. Understanding was the problem. Victoria consulted her notes. Let's talk about November 12th. You had a job interview that morning? Yes, at Meridian Tech. Important interview? Final round. For a senior position. And Sarah's sister Emma needed a ride to the mall. She wanted a ride. There's a difference between need and want. Sarah asked you to drive Emma. You refused. I explained I had a commitment. I offered alternatives. Uber, their parents, the bus. But you refused to help. I refused to cancel my interview. Sarah has stated she felt abandoned, that you chose a job interview over family. I chose honoring a commitment over an unreasonable last-minute demand. Unreasonable. Emma needed interview clothes. That seems reasonable. Emma's interview was 3 days away. The mall would be open other days. My interview was that morning, non-negotiable. The situations weren't equivalent. And yet you made your choice clear. Your career over family. My commitment over manipulation. Victoria's smile sharpened. Manipulation. You believe Sarah was manipulating you? I believe the request was designed to test whether I'd comply. Whether I knew my place. Your place? What place was that? Subordinate to the Caldwell family's preferences. That's quite an allegation, that your wife and her family were engaged in some conspiracy to subordinate you. Not a conspiracy, a culture, a set of expectations that I'd been accepting for years. Until you snapped. Until I set a boundary. By walking out. By going to my interview. And when you returned, Sarah had left. Correct. Did that surprise you? I paused, considered. Yes and no. I was surprised she'd actually leave. I wasn't surprised she'd chosen her family over our marriage. You're blaming her for leaving. I'm observing that when faced with a choice between supporting her husband and supporting her father's authority, she chose the latter. Victoria leaned forward. Let's talk about Richard Caldwell's alleged assault. There's nothing alleged about it. He assaulted me. You claim he pushed you into a wall. He did push me into a wall. Hard enough to cause injury? Hard enough to knock the air out of me. But no bruising, no medical treatment sought? No. No witnesses besides family members who dispute your account? They were witnesses. That they choose to lie doesn't make the assault less real. Or perhaps it didn't happen the way you claim. It happened exactly the way I claim. Richard put his hand on my chest and shoved me into the wall hard enough to rattle a picture frame. He said, quote, "Her future matters. Yours never did." Sarah stood there and smirked. Sarah denies smirking. Sarah would. You sound bitter, Mr. Harper. I sound honest. Victoria consulted her notes again. You filed a false police report claiming Sarah assaulted you. That's incorrect, Judith interrupted. Sarah filed a false report claiming Daniel assaulted her. The police investigated and found her allegations unsupported. My apologies. Sarah filed a report. The police chose not to pursue it. That doesn't make it false. It makes it unsupported by evidence, Judith said. Daniel's account, meanwhile, was documented the same day it occurred and has remained consistent. Victoria smiled. Consistent, yes. Almost suspiciously so, as if rehearsed. Or as if true, I said. We'll let the courts decide that. Let's discuss your new employment. You started at Meridian Tech on December 2nd? Correct. Making significantly more money. $160,000 annually. More than double your previous salary. Yes. Convenient timing. Right as divorce proceedings begin, your income jumps dramatically. I saw where this was going. The interview was scheduled 3 weeks before I filed for separation. I'd been in process with Meridian Tech for 2 months before that. The timing wasn't strategic, but it certainly benefits you. Higher income means higher alimony calculations. It benefits both of us. Sarah will receive more support. For how long? That's negotiable. Sarah is requesting 5 years of alimony. Do you find that unreasonable? Given that we were married for 5 years, yes. Especially given that Sarah is 32, healthy, educated, and fully capable of working. She sacrificed her career to support yours. She worked retail for 6 months 5 years ago. That's not a career sacrifice. That's choosing not to work. You resent supporting her. I resent the expectation that I should support her indefinitely while she contributes nothing. Nothing. You consider managing a household nothing? I consider not managing a household nothing. The deposition continued for 3 more hours. Victoria circled back, probed inconsistencies that didn't exist, tried to paint me as cold, calculating, vengeful. I stayed calm, factual. Let the truth be boring. When it finally ended, I was exhausted, wrung out, but still standing. Outside, in the parking garage, Judith put a hand on my arm. You did well. It felt like she was winning. She was performing. Everything she does is performance. But your story held. No contradictions. No emotional outbursts. You came across as credible. What happens now? Now we wait for their settlement offer. Because after that deposition, they know going to trial is risky. You're a good witness. Sarah is less so. She barely said anything. Exactly. She let Victoria do the talking. That's because if Sarah testifies, she'll have to explain the smirk, the false police report, the pattern of manipulation. She doesn't want to do that under oath. We walked to our cars. Daniel, Judith said, I need to ask, are you prepared for them to settle? Why wouldn't I be? Because settlement means compromise. It means Sarah gets something. Money, support, a piece of your new life. And after everything they've done, I know part of you wants them to get nothing. She was right. Part of me wanted scorched earth, wanted the Caldwells to face consequences, to lose publicly, but another part just wanted to be free. I'm prepared, I said, if the settlement is reasonable. Define reasonable. 3 years alimony, declining schedule. She keeps her car, I keep the house. We split liquid assets 50-50. No fault divorce. Clean break. They'll want more. Let them want. That's my line. Judith nodded. Then we hold it. Part 10, the settlement offer. The offer came 3 days before Christmas. I was at my desk reviewing project timelines when Judith called. They sent a proposal. And? You're not going to like it. She emailed me the document. I pulled it up. Scanned the terms. 5 years alimony at $4,000 monthly. Sarah keeps her car, gets half the value of the house and half my retirement account, half my savings, and half the appreciation on my Meridian Tech stock options. Oh, and a public statement from me acknowledging my role in the marriage's dissolution and expressing regret for prioritizing career over family. I laughed, actually laughed out loud. This is insane. It's a negotiating position. They're starting high. They're starting insulting. They want me to apologize publicly to validate their narrative, which you won't do, which I absolutely will not do. Then we counter. We spent an hour on the phone crafting our response. 3 years alimony, declining. Sarah keeps the car, I keep the house. Retirement and savings split based on marital portion only, what was accumulated during the marriage, not my pre-existing assets. No public statements, no admissions, no fault. Judith sent it that afternoon. The response came Christmas Eve. Your client's counter is unacceptable. Our offer stands. You have until January 2nd to accept or we proceed to trial. Victoria Brennan. Christmas was quiet. I'd sent gifts to my parents, scheduled a video call. We talked for an hour, them in Arizona sunshine, me in North Carolina cold. They asked about the divorce. I gave them the summary version, left out the worst parts. You sound better, my mom said. I am better. Stronger. Yeah. We're proud of you, Danny, for standing up for yourself, for not accepting less than you deserve. My dad leaned into frame. When this is over, come visit. Spend a week. Decompress. I will. After we hung up, I sat in my living room looking at the Christmas tree I'd bought on impulse. A small one, nothing elaborate. White lights, no decorations, simple. My phone buzzed. Emma, on Instagram, posting pictures of the Caldwell family Christmas. Sarah front and center, looking radiant and wounded. Caption, grateful for family who shows up. #blessed, #family. First, I blocked her. Should have done it weeks ago. Another buzz. This time a text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Tom Sterling. Richard asked me to reach out. The legal fight is expensive and public. Bad for everyone. Can we talk, negotiate something reasonable? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I called Judith. Tom Sterling just texted me, wants to negotiate directly. Do not respond. That's exactly what they want. To bypass attorneys, get you to agree to something without proper representation. What if he's genuine? What if Richard's ready to settle? Then Richard can communicate through Victoria. That's how this works. I'm tired, Judith. I'm tired of fighting. If there's a path to end this, not like this, not through back channels and pressure, you hold your line. Make them come to you properly. I didn't respond to Sterling. New Year's Eve, I worked. The Cordoba project was entering final phases. Client presentation in 2 weeks. I stayed late at the office, reviewed code, prepared slides, lost myself in work that made sense when everything else didn't. Around 9, Marcus found me still at my desk. Harper, go home. Almost done. You've been almost done for 3 hours. It's New Year's Eve. You should be drinking champagne, kissing strangers, doing whatever normal people do. I'm not normal, people. He sat on the edge of my desk. I know about your divorce. I looked up, surprised. Office gossip, he said. Don't worry, nothing detailed. Just that you're going through it. Rough one. That's accurate. For what it's worth, you're handling it like a pro. I've seen people fall apart over less. You're steady, focused. It's impressive. Work is easy. It has rules, clear outcomes, unlike marriages. Marcus laughed. Fair, but still, don't lose yourself in it. Work will always be here. Life moves faster. Thanks, I think. Go home. Order Chinese food. Watch the ball drop. Be a cliche. You've earned it. I went home, ordered a Chinese food, watched the ball drop alone in my living room, champagne in a coffee mug because I'd never bought proper glasses. When midnight struck, I felt nothing. No sadness, no celebration, just the quiet acknowledgement that one year had ended and another begun. My phone buzzed at 12:03 a.m. Judith, Happy New Year. Victoria called. They want to meet January 3rd, ready to negotiate for real this time. I typed back, I'm ready. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. at a neutral office, a mediator's space downtown, all beige and non-threatening, designed to facilitate compromise. I arrived early with Judith. We set up in one conference room. Sarah and Victoria took another. The mediator, Gregory Walsh, veteran family law specialist, shuttled between rooms, facilitated offers, smoothed tensions. By 4 p.m., we'd made progress. Alimony, 4 years, declining schedule, starting at $3,500, dropping by $500 each year. Assets, I keep the house. Sarah gets her car plus $40,000 cash settlement. Retirement, split of marital portion only, about $35,000 of my $20,000 total. It was more than I wanted to give, less than they wanted to take. The sticking point, the public statement. Victoria insisted. My client's reputation has been damaged. She needs acknowledgement. My client's reputation has been damaged by false allegations, Judith countered. He's not apologizing for defending himself. We're not asking for an apology, just acknowledgement that both parties contributed to the marriage's end. That's weasel language for blame. No, Gregory tried to mediate. What if the statement is mutual? Both parties acknowledging that the marriage ended due to irreconcilable differences, both wishing each other well? That's just divorce language, Judith said. That's not what they want. What we want, Victoria said, is acknowledgement that Daniel's career focus created strain in the marriage. Absolutely not, I said. Everyone looked at me. My career focus created strain? Not Richard assaulting me? Not Sarah's family treating me like an ATM? Not the constant expectation that I'd sacrifice my goals for theirs? Mr. Harper, Gregory began. No, I've compromised on money. I've compromised on timelines. I've compromised on assets I shouldn't have to share. But I won't compromise on truth. I won't sign a statement that validates their narrative. Victoria leaned forward. Then we're at impasse. Fine. You want to go to trial, spend 6 months in litigation, rack up legal fees that will dwarf the settlement we're discussing? If that's what it takes to avoid lying, yes. You're being irrational. I'm being principled. There's a difference. Gregory called a break. Sarah and Victoria huddled in their room, Judith and I in ours. They're bluffing, Judith said. They don't want trial either. What if they're not bluffing? Then we go to trial and we win. Your documentation is pristine. Their credibility is shot, but it'll cost you time, money, energy. I know. Is this worth it? The statement they're asking for is mild, corporate. Nobody reads those things anyway. I'll know I signed it. That's enough. Judith studied me. You've changed. When you first walked into my office, you were ready to give them anything to avoid conflict. That was before they filed false police reports. Before they tried to destroy me. Before I realized compromise with people who see you as less than is just surrender by another name. You're sure? Completely. Gregory returned. They're willing to drop the statement requirement if you agree to 5 years alimony at the current payment schedule. I did the math. 5 years at declining payments, starting at $3,500, would cost me roughly $150,000 total versus 4 years at $20,000. $30,000 to avoid signing a statement, Judith murmured. Worth it, I said. Counter, Judith told Gregory. 4.5 years, split the difference. He went back to the other room, returned 20 minutes later. They accept. 4.5 years, declining schedule, no public statement. Final terms? Judith asked. Gregory laid it out. All the components we discussed, now locked in. Division of assets, alimony schedule, no fault dissolution, clean break. We'll draft the formal agreement, Victoria said through Gregory. Both parties can review with counsel, sign next week. Agreed, Judith said. I sat there feeling something like relief, something like sadness. The end of a marriage reduced to dollar amounts and timelines. One more thing, Gregory said. Sarah would like to speak with Daniel. Briefly, just the two of them. Absolutely not, Judith said. It's fine, I told her. Daniel, I can handle a conversation. Gregory set us up in his office, neutral ground, glass walls, him visible outside if things went wrong. Sarah entered looking smaller than I remembered. Tired. The past 2 months had aged her. We sat across from each other at Gregory's desk. Thank you for agreeing to talk, she said. What do you want, Sarah? I want to understand how we got here, how 5 years of marriage ended like this. You know how. Because of my father? Because of one bad day? Because of 1,000 bad days that culminated in one revealing moment. She looked down. I never meant to hurt you. But you did, consistently, by prioritizing your family's expectations over our partnership, by treating my career as optional, by smirking when your father assaulted me. I didn't smirk. Yes, you did. Daniel, Sarah, we can argue about what happened, or we can accept that we remember it differently. Either way, the result is the same. We're getting divorced. It doesn't have to be like this. We could try therapy, work on things. You filed a false police report accusing me of assault. She flinched. I was scared. I thought, you thought you could control the narrative, make me the villain, justify leaving. I was trying to protect myself. From what? I never hurt you, never threatened you. I just stopped letting you hurt me. Silence. I loved you, she said finally. I know, I loved you too. But love isn't enough when the fundamental values don't align. What values? We wanted the same things. No, you wanted a provider, a supporter, someone who'd enable your lifestyle while accepting a subordinate role in your family hierarchy. I wanted a partner, an equal, someone who saw my dreams as important as hers. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's true. My family only wanted what was best for us. Your family wanted what was best for them. I was just supposed to facilitate it. She wiped her eyes. I don't know how to fix this. You can't. That's the point. Some things are broken beyond repair. Do you hate me? The question caught me off guard. I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. I don't hate you. I pity you. Pity me? You're 32 years old, Sarah. You've never had to stand on your own. You went from your parents' house to our house, from your father's money to my paycheck. You've never had to discover who you are outside of being a Caldwell daughter or someone's wife. That's cruel. It's honest. And maybe this divorce is the best thing that could happen to you. Maybe you'll finally figure out who Sarah is when she's not performing for an audience. And what about you? You think you're so enlightened now? I think I'm finally learning to value myself, to set boundaries, to walk away from people who treat me like I'm disposable. She stood. I hope you're happy with your new doll and your new life and your freedom. I hope you find yours too. Really. I hope you learn to stand on your own. I don't need your condescension. It's not condescension. It's the last piece of genuine care I can offer. She left without another word. I sat there for a moment, feeling the weight of finality. That was probably the last real conversation we'd ever have. Everything else would be legal formalities, signatures on documents, the administrative dismantling of what we'd built. Judith poked her head in. You okay? Yeah. Ready to finish this? More than ready. We signed preliminary agreements, scheduled the final signing for January 10th, shook hands with Gregory, nodded at Victoria. In the parking garage, Judith gave me a rare smile. You did it. You got out with your dignity intact. Feels expensive. Freedom usually is, but you can afford it now. The money's not what I'm worried about. What then? I keep thinking about what comes next, when the divorce is final and the dust settles and I'm just alone. You rebuild. That's what comes next. You figure out who Daniel Harper is when he's not trying to please the Caldwells. You date. You travel. You invest in friendships. You live. Sounds simple when you say it. It's not simple. but it's possible. And you've already done the hard part. I drove home through early evening traffic, NPR playing soft news about things that seemed distant and unimportant. The house was dark when I arrived. I'd forgotten to leave lights on. Inside, I poured a bourbon, sat on the couch, looked at the space I'd soon own outright. No Sarah's things, no shared history, just mine. My phone buzzed. Miranda Chen, Cordoba presentation crushed it. Client wants to expand scope. You're officially a Meridian legend. Drinks Friday to celebrate? I smiled. Typed back, I'm in. Work was good. The divorce was ending. Life was moving forward. So why did I feel so hollow? The formal signing was scheduled for January 10th at 10 a.m. I'd taken the morning off work, wore a suit like I was attending a funeral. In a way I was. The death of a marriage, the burial of 5 years. Judith met me at the attorney's office, not Gregory's neutral space this time, but Victoria Brennan's territory. A power play letting us sign on their turf. I didn't care. Signatures were signatures regardless of location. Sarah was already there when we arrived, sitting in the conference room with Victoria, her parents flanking her like bodyguards. I hadn't expected Richard and Diane. Mr. and Mrs. Caldwell, Judith said neutrally. I wasn't aware you'd be attending. Moral support for our daughter, Richard said. He looked older than I remembered. Grayer. Or maybe I was just seeing him clearly for the first time. Of course, Judith set down her briefcase. Shall we proceed? Victoria distributed copies of the settlement agreement, 23 pages of legalese, reducing our marriage to terms and conditions. I read every word, confirmed every number, checked every clause. It was all there. Everything we'd negotiated, clean, final. Any questions? Victoria asked. No, I said. Sarah. No. Her voice was small. She still wasn't looking at me. Then if you'll both initial each page and sign the final page, we can execute the agreement. I started initialing, page after page. My hand was steady, no hesitation. I was halfway through when Richard spoke. I want to say something. Everyone looked up. Richard, Diane put a hand on his arm. He shook it off. No, he needs to hear this. They both do. Judith's voice was sharp. Mr. Caldwell, this is not the appropriate. I built everything I have from nothing, Richard said, talking over her, eyes locked on me. Everything. I started with a $5,000 loan and turned it into an empire. I earned respect. I earned influence. I earned the right to expect my family to uphold our name. Dad, please, Sarah whispered. You, he pointed at me, were never going to be good enough for that. I knew it the day Sarah brought you home. Some middle-class kid with middle-class dreams, thinking he could marry into our family and coast on our success. Richard, Diane's voice cracked. He ignored her. I tried to teach you, to mold you, to make you understand what it means to be a Caldwell. But you couldn't learn. You couldn't adapt. You stayed small. I set down my pen. Are you finished? No, you think you've won. You think walking away makes you strong. But all you've done is prove exactly what I always knew. You're not a builder. You're not a man who creates opportunity. You're a man who runs when things get difficult. I ran from abuse. There's a difference. Abuse, Richard laughed bitterly. I barely touched you. A hand on your chest. That's not abuse. That's a father trying to teach a boy to be a man. You're not my father, and shoving someone into a wall is assault, not education. You're weak. You've always been weak. And now Sarah's paying the price for your weakness. Sarah's paying the price for choosing you over her marriage. She chose family, loyalty, values you clearly don't possess. I stood. You know what I've learned over the past 2 months, Richard? You talk a lot about building empires and earning respect. But everything you have is built on connections you inherited, deals you leveraged through your father's name, and money you've spent convincing people you're more successful than you are. His face went red. How dare you? I've done my research. Your 3 companies. One was a gift from your father-in-law. One you sold for pennies before it went bankrupt. And the third is currently leveraged to the point where one bad quarter would collapse it. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm a project manager, Richard. I analyze risk for a living. Your empire is a house of cards held together by ego and credit. Victoria stood. Mr. Harper, this is highly inappropriate. You want to call me weak? Fine, I'm weak. I'm so weak I documented every threat you made, every assault, every manipulation. I'm so weak I built a legal case that got Sarah's false allegations dismissed. I'm so weak I negotiated a settlement that protects my assets while still providing for your daughter. I'm so weak I'm walking out of this marriage with my integrity intact. Integrity, Richard spat. You don't know the meaning of the word. I know it better than you, because integrity is doing the right thing even when it costs you, even when it's hard, even when everyone's telling you you're wrong. I honored my commitments. I told the truth. I set boundaries. That's integrity. You abandoned your wife. I left a marriage where I was being abused. There's a difference. Richard stood now too, moving toward me. Judith stepped between us. Mr. Caldwell, if you touch my client again, I will have you arrested. Diane finally found her voice. Richard, sit down, please. He needs to understand. What I understand, I said quietly, is that you're terrified. You're terrified that I walked away, that I chose myself over your authority, that I proved you can't control everyone with money and threats and manipulation. And that terrifies you because if I can do it, others might too. Richard's jaw worked. For a moment, I thought he might actually hit me. Then he sat down, heavily, like a marionette with cut strings. Sign the papers, he muttered. Get this over with. I sat, finished initialing, signed the final page. Sarah signed through tears. Victoria notarized. Judith witnessed. The agreement was executed. We were divorced. Not legally, that would take months for the court to finalize. But practically, effectively, the settlement was binding. I'll file with the court this afternoon, Victoria said. You should receive final decree by April. Thank you, Judith said. We stood to leave. I was almost to the door when Sarah spoke. Daniel. I turned. She looked broken. Red-eyed, smaller than I'd ever seen her. I'm sorry, she said, for all of it. I'm sorry. I know. Do you forgive me? I thought about that. Forgiveness. What it meant. What it cost. I don't know yet, I said honestly. But I hope someday I will. For my sake, not yours. We left. In the elevator, Judith let out a long breath. That was intense. Richard's losing control of his narrative. He needed to reassert dominance. Did you mean what you said? About his companies? Every word. I spent weeks researching the Caldwell family finances. Richard's successful by appearance, but the substance is thin. You're playing with fire. If he finds out you've been digging, what's he going to do? Assault me again? I'm done being afraid of Richard Caldwell. We reached the parking garage, stood by our cars. What now? Judith asked her. Now I wait for the final decree, build my life, move forward. You sound certain. I am. For the first time in years, I'm certain. She smiled. Good luck, Daniel. You've earned it. I drove to work, made it just in time for the afternoon status meeting. Priya noticed something in my face. You good, Harper? Signed my divorce settlement this morning. Shit, you okay? Yeah, actually I am. We're getting drinks after work. You're coming. I have to. You're coming. Non-negotiable. Team building. Also, you look like you need a beer. I laughed. Fine. That evening, I sat in a bar with my Meridian Tech team, Priya, Marcus, James, a few developers, and for the first time in months, I felt normal. Not divorced Daniel, not victim Daniel, just Daniel. Part of a team, making jokes, telling stories, being seen for my work, not my drama. Marcus raised his glass. To Harper, who fixed our disaster project and apparently also escaped a disaster marriage. Multitasking, king. To Harper, everyone echoed. I drank, laughed, felt something like hope. My phone buzzed, unknown number. I almost ignored it, but stepped outside to check. A text. This is Emma. We need to talk. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I blocked the number. I was done with the Caldwells. All of them. I went back inside, ordered another round, celebrated the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. February brought thaw. Not just weather, though Charlotte did warm up, the brutal January cold giving way to something almost spring-like. But internal thaw too. The frozen, braced-for-impact feeling I'd been carrying started to melt. Work was thriving. The Cordoba project had wrapped successfully, under budget and ahead of schedule. I'd been assigned 2 more high-priority projects. Miranda was talking about promotion paths, team lead, director, possibilities I'd stopped letting myself imagine. The house was mine. Not legally yet, the final decree was still processing. But Sarah's things were gone, the walls repainted, the space reclaimed. I'd bought actual furniture. Not expensive, but mine. Chosen by me. Reflecting taste, I was still discovering. I was learning who Daniel Harper was. Turned out he liked jazz, cooking, long runs on Saturday mornings, reading philosophy and history, things he'd stopped doing when every evening was consumed by Caldwell family obligations. I was also learning I was lonelier than I'd admitted. The team drinks were great, work friendships were real, but at the end of the day, I went home alone, ate alone, slept alone, and the silence, while freeing, also echoed. I'd started thinking about dating, not seriously, just abstractly, what that would look like, how to even begin. My phone interrupted those thoughts with a call from Judith. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. My stomach dropped. "What kind of problem?" "Richard Caldwell filed a civil suit against you, defamation, stemming from statements you allegedly made about his business practices." "The stuff I said in Victoria's office? About his companies?" "That and apparently more. He's claiming you've been spreading malicious lies to damage his reputation. He's seeking $250,000 in damages." I sat down. This is retaliation. Obviously, and it's probably frivolous, but it's also expensive to defend against. Legal fees alone could run $50,000. Can he win? Depends on what you actually said and to whom. If you repeated your claims about his businesses to third parties, in a context where they might be taken as factual, rather than opinion, then potentially yes. I thought back, the conversations I'd had, the research I'd done. I told Sarah during our final conversation. I said it in front of Richard at the settlement signing. I didn't spread it beyond that. "Are you sure?" I ran through my memory. Coffee shop conversations, work drinks, casual mentions of, oh no, I might have mentioned something to Tom Sterling. Sarah's sister Emma's employer? Yes, he called me during Thanksgiving, threatened me on Richard's behalf. I told him I'd researched Richard's businesses and they weren't as solid as advertised. In those words? Something close to that. Judith swore softly. That's third-party repetition. That could be actionable. I was defending myself against his threats. Doesn't matter. You made factual claims about Richard's business solvency to a business associate. If those claims were false or recklessly made, they weren't false. I have documentation. Then we'll need to prove it, which means discovery, forensic accounting, depositions. This gets ugly and expensive fast. Why is he doing this? The divorce is settled. What does he gain? Punishment, revenge, and possibly covering his tracks. If his businesses really are as shaky as you suggested, he can't afford scrutiny. By suing you for defamation, he's trying to silence you before you can prove it. I paced my living room. So what do? We respond. We file a motion to dismiss based on truth as defense. We gather your documentation, and we prepare for the possibility that this goes to trial. More money, more time, more fighting. Yes. I'm tired, Judith. I know, but they're not going to stop until they feel they've won something. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my house and felt the weight of it. This was never going to end. Not really. Richard wouldn't allow it. His ego had been wounded, his authority challenged, and men like Richard didn't accept defeat. They escalated until they found a way to rewrite history in their favor. My phone buzzed. Priya, team lunch tomorrow? Korean BBQ? I typed back. I'll be there, at least I had that. A team. People who valued me for what I contributed, not what I could tolerate. The next day at lunch, Marcus noticed I was distracted. What's going on, Harper? I debated keeping it professional, but these people had become friends. Real ones. My ex-father-in-law is suing me for defamation. Priya's eyes went wide. What the fuck? Long story, I made some comments about his business practices. He didn't like it. Were they true? James asked. Completely. I have documentation. Marcus leaned back. Then he's an idiot. Truth is an absolute defense to defamation. Doesn't make the lawsuit less expensive to fight. How much are we talking? Priya asked. Defense could run 50 grand, maybe more. She whistled. That's brutal. Welcome to divorce warfare. I tried to sound casual. Failed. Marcus exchanged a look with Priya. Harper, how comfortable are you with the team knowing details about your situation? Why? Because I've been through something similar. Different circumstances, but same legal system as weapon bullshit. And I learned something important. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. Meaning? Meaning people like your ex-father-in-law rely on you being isolated, ashamed, too scared to talk about what they're doing. But the second you go public, professionally, carefully, with documentation, they lose their power. I can't just air this publicly. That could make the defamation case worse. Not airing dirty laundry, documenting facts. There's a difference. Priya nodded. I have a friend who writes for the Charlotte Business Journal. If Richard Caldwell is running shaky companies while presenting as a titan of industry, that's newsworthy. Especially if he's using lawsuits to silence people who point it out. That would be nuclear. Yeah, Marcus said, but nuclear might be what you need. Right now, he controls the narrative. He's the successful businessman. You're the bitter ex-son-in-law making up lies. But if a journalist investigates and confirms your claims, then I'm a whistleblower, not a defamer. Exactly. I thought about it. The risk, the escalation, the point of no return, but also the freedom. No more defense, active offense. Fighting back with the one weapon Richard couldn't control, the truth. Give me your friend's contact, I said to Priya. The journalist's name was Rebecca Kim, mid-30s, sharp, with a reputation for investigative work that had taken down 2 local politicians and exposed a nonprofit embezzlement scheme. She agreed to meet me at a coffee shop downtown. I brought documentation, financial filings I'd pulled from public records, articles about Richard's business dealings, the timeline I'd constructed showing how his empire was really a shell game of debt and connections. Rebecca listened while I laid it out, asked questions, took notes. This is compelling, she said finally, but I need to verify independently. I can't just take your word, no offense. None taken. That's why I brought source documents. These are good, but I'll need more. Tax filings if I can get them, interviews with former business partners, bank records. How long will that take? Weeks, maybe months. This kind of investigation doesn't happen overnight. I'm being sued for defamation. The lawsuit moves faster than journalism. She smiled. Then we'd better work fast, but I need to be clear. I'm not doing this as a favor. If the story doesn't pan out, if I can't verify your claims, I won't publish. Understood. And if it does pan out, it might not help your legal case. In fact, it might make things worse in the short term. Richard will come after you harder. I know. You're sure about this? Was I? This was the point where I could back out, apologize to Richard, drop the divorce drama, live quietly with my settlement, and move on. But I thought about Richard's hand on my chest, the smirk on Sarah's face, the years of being treated as less than. I'm sure, I said. Rebecca nodded. Then let's get to work. Over the next 3 weeks, Rebecca dug. She filed FOIA requests. She interviewed people in Richard's orbit. She traced corporate ownership through layers of LLCs and holding companies. And she found problems, big ones. Richard's primary company, Caldwell Holdings, was leveraged at a 12-1 debt-to-equity ratio. He'd taken out loans against projected earnings that hadn't materialized. He'd funneled money between entities to create the appearance of solvency while covering shortfalls. It wasn't illegal exactly, but it was fragile. One major client pulling out, one loan being called, and the whole structure could collapse. Rebecca also found something else. Whispers of preferential treatment for Emma at Sterling Properties. Not nepotism exactly, but favoritism. Assignments she wasn't qualified for. Projects where she'd failed but faced no consequences. Tom Sterling, when interviewed, defended Emma vigorously. Too vigorously. The kind of defense that made you wonder what he was trying to prove. In early March, Rebecca called me. Story's ready. It'll run this Sunday, business section, above the fold. I wanted to give you a heads up. What's the headline? The Caldwell Empire Success Story or House of Cards? I exhaled slowly. That'll get attention. That's the idea. You ready for the fallout? As ready as I'll ever be. Harper, and I'm saying this as someone who's seen sources get destroyed by powerful people. Protect yourself. Document everything. Assume Richard will retaliate. Have your lawyer on speed dial. Already done. Good luck. The article published March 15th, Sunday morning. I bought a physical copy of the paper, sat in my kitchen, and read it cover to cover. Rebecca had been thorough, devastating. She'd laid out Richard's financial house of cards with precision, interviewed former business partners who described his tendency to over-leverage and under-deliver, noted the pattern of using family connections to secure deals that his companies couldn't sustain on merit. She'd even found an anonymous source, someone who'd worked at Sterling Properties, describing how Emma had been hired as a favor to Richard and given opportunities based on her last name, not her qualifications. The article stopped short of calling Richard a fraud, but it asked pointed questions about sustainability, transparency, and whether Charlotte's business community had been fooled by appearances. By noon, my phone was exploding. Judith, have you seen it? Me, reading it now. Judith, Richard's attorney is already threatening to add the CBJ to the defamation suit. Me, can they do that? Judith, they can try, won't succeed, but it shows their state of mind. My brother Jake, dude, you made the Charlotte Business Journal? That's amazing. Mom, please tell me you knew this was coming. Miranda, is everything okay? Saw the article. Your ex-father-in-law seems intense. I spent the afternoon managing responses, reassuring people, staying calm while internally screaming. By evening, the article had been picked up by regional business sites. Reddit was discussing it. Local business Twitter was on fire. And Richard was silent. Too silent. That worried me more than threats would have. Monday morning, I arrived at work to find Marcus waiting by my desk. You saw the article, I said. Everyone saw the article. Harper, that was ballsy. Respect. Or stupid. Sometimes they're the same thing. I settled into work, tried to focus on the new project I'd been assigned, but my mind kept drifting to Richard, to what he must be thinking, planning. The response came Tuesday, not from Richard directly, from the Charlotte Chamber of Commerce, a statement released to the press. The Chamber has full confidence in Richard Caldwell and Caldwell Holdings. Recent allegations in the media appear to be motivated by personal animus from a disgruntled former family member. We stand by Mr. Caldwell's contributions to our business community. It was signed by the Chamber president, who, I learned with quick research, had received significant campaign contributions from Richard for his city council run. The narrative war was on. Richard's friends and associates rallied. Op-eds appeared defending him. Letters to the editor calling the CBJ article irresponsible journalism. Social media campaigns questioning Rebecca's motives. The defamation lawsuit against me was amended, adding claims related to the article. Now Richard was seeking $500,000 in damages. This is getting out of control, I told Judith. It's going exactly as Richard wants it to. He's making this expensive in public to force you to back down. What if I can't afford to keep fighting? Then you settle, apologize, sign a retraction, give him the win he needs. And if I can't do that, if I can't sign my name to a lie, then we go to trial and hope that truth really is an absolute defense. That night, alone in my house, I pulled out the document I'd been working on, the comprehensive timeline of my marriage, Richard's assaults, Sarah's manipulations, the pattern of abuse disguised as family values. I'd kept it private, shared it only with Judith, used it only for legal defense. But Marcus's words echoed, "Sunlight is the best disinfectant." I opened a new document, Started writing. Not a legal brief, not a defensive screed. A story. My story. First person, honest, raw. I refused to cancel my job interview, just to drive my wife's sister to the mall. Wife's dad threw me against the wall. Her future matters, yours never did. My wife smirked, so I walked out and they lost everything. I wrote through the night, every detail, every moment, every truth I'd been too scared to speak. By dawn, I had 15,000 words. By the end of the week, I had 30,000. The full story, complete, documented, true. I sent it to Rebecca Kim. "What's this?" she asked when she called. "My side, all of it. If you think it's newsworthy, you can publish it. If not, at least I've written it down." "Harper, this is explosive. If I publish this, Richard will destroy you." "He's already trying. At least this way, people will know why." She was quiet for a long moment. "Let me read it, really read it. I'll call you back." Rebecca called 3 days later. "I want to publish this, but not as journalism, as a first-person account, essay format. We'd run it with a disclaimer that these are your allegations, your perspective." "Will that protect you legally?" "It protects the CBJ by making clear this is opinion, not investigative reporting. It protects you by establishing a public record of your claims before trial." "When?" "This Sunday. I need your explicit permission. Once this runs, there's no taking it back. Richard will come after you with everything he has." I thought about Sarah's smirk, Richard's hand on my chest, the years of feeling disposable. "Publish it," I said. The article, my article, ran Sunday, March 29th, not just in print, online too. The CBJ put it on their website, promoted it on social media, positioned it as a rare first-person account of family dysfunction and domestic abuse. By noon, it had 15,000 views. By evening, 50,000. The comments section exploded. Some people called me brave. Others said I was airing dirty laundry for attention. Some shared their own stories of family abuse. Others defended the Caldwells. The story got picked up. Regional news sites, divorce support forums, Reddit threads. Someone created a TikTok summarizing it that went viral. By Monday morning, I'd received interview requests from 3 podcasts, 2 television stations, and a literary agent who thought it could be a book. I declined them all. This wasn't about fame. It was about truth. Richard's response came swiftly. A press conference, called for Tuesday afternoon, at the Chamber of Commerce building. I watched it live stream from my office. Richard stood at a podium, flanked by his attorney and several business associates. He looked composed, presidential almost. "I want to address the malicious allegations that have been circulating about my family and my business," he began. "These allegations come from a bitter, vindictive individual who cannot accept responsibility for his own failures." The camera panned. I saw Sarah standing in the background, Emma beside her. United front. "Daniel Harper entered our family 5 years ago. We welcomed him, supported him, treated him as a son. And when his career stagnated, when his marriage struggled, he chose to blame us rather than look inward." Lies. Smooth, polished lies. "The allegations about my business practices have been investigated and debunked by independent accountants. My companies are solvent, successful, and contributing to Charlotte's economic growth." He held up a document. "This is an independent audit conducted by Morrison and Associates, one of the most respected accounting firms in the Southeast. It confirms that Caldwell Holdings maintains appropriate debt ratios and operates with full transparency." I wondered how much that audit cost, how much of Richard's rapidly dwindling capital he'd spent on buying credibility. As for the personal allegations, the claim that I assaulted Daniel Harper, this is fiction, a desperate attempt to justify abandoning his wife and his responsibilities. The truth is simple. I tried to teach him about family, about commitment. He chose to interpret strength as abuse. The reporters asked questions. Richard deflected smoothly. His attorney threatened legal action against anyone repeating the defamatory claims. Sarah stepped to the microphone for 30 seconds. "My ex-husband is hurting," she said, voice trembling. "I wish him healing, but I also wish he'd stop trying to hurt my family and his pain." Performance, all of it, carefully scripted, expertly delivered, and it might have worked, except for one thing. The next day, Emma posted on Instagram a long, emotional caption about family loyalty, about standing by her father, about how some people can't handle real success. She included a photo, her, Sarah, and Richard at a charity gala from 2 years ago, all of them looking perfect, powerful, untouchable, and in the background, barely visible, me, standing off to the side, looking uncomfortable, out of place. The photo went viral for the wrong reasons. People zoomed in, enhanced it, shared it with comments. Look how isolated he is. That's the posture of someone who doesn't belong. You can see the family dynamic in one picture. Emma's attempt to defend her family became evidence for my claims. By Thursday, the narrative had shifted. Public opinion was splitting. Some believed Richard, others believed me. But the conversation itself was the victory. The truth was out there. All of it. No longer hidden behind closed doors and family loyalty. Friday afternoon, Judith called. Richard wants to settle. The defamation suit? Everything. The lawsuit, the public battle, all of it. What are his terms? Mutual non-disparagement agreement. You don't talk about him, he doesn't talk about you. He drops the lawsuit. You agree not to publish any more personal accounts or give interviews. And he pays your legal fees, all of them, from the divorce and the defamation case, roughly $80,000. That's it? No money? No money, just mutual silence and legal fees covered. I thought about it, the offer, the terms, what it meant. He's scared, I said, terrified. The article did damage. His business partners are nervous. That audit he commissioned found problems he didn't expect. He needs this to go away. What do you recommend? Take it. You've won. You've told your truth. You've exposed him. Dragging this out doesn't gain you anything except more legal bills. But he gets away with it, with everything he did. Does he? His reputation is damaged. His business is under scrutiny. His daughter's marriage fell apart. Sarah's social circle knows the truth now. That's not getting away with it. That's consequences. She was right. This was as close to justice as I was going to get. Not perfect, not Hollywood ending, but real, messy, true. I'll sign, I said, on one condition. What? I want a written apology from Richard, acknowledging that he physically assaulted me. It doesn't have to be public, but I want it in writing. He'll never agree to that. Then no deal, Judith sighed. I'll ask. She called back 2 hours later. You got it. He'll provide a written acknowledgement that the incident in your kitchen on November 12th constituted assault. It'll be part of the confidential settlement agreement, not public, but legally binding. He agreed to that. His attorney convinced him it was worth it to make you go away. When do we sign? Monday, same office as the divorce settlement, bringing this full circle. Monday, April 6th, spring in Charlotte, trees blooming, air warm. I wore jeans and a polo to the signing. No suit, no performance, just me. Judith met me in the parking garage of Victoria Brennan's office. You ready? Yeah. Remember, this is victory. It might not feel like it, but you got everything you wanted. Freedom, truth, accountability. We rode the elevator in silence. The conference room was less crowded this time. Just Richard, his attorney, Victoria, Judith, and me. No Sarah, no Diane, no Emma. Richard looked diminished. That was the word that came to mind. He'd lost weight. The presidential bearing was gone. He looked like what he was, a man in his 60s whose empire was crumbling. We sat across from each other, one last time. The attorneys distributed the documents. Settlement agreement, mutual non-disparagement, legal fee reimbursement, and attached as Exhibit A, Richard's written acknowledgement. I read it carefully. I, Richard Caldwell, acknowledge that on November 12, 2024, during a confrontation at the residence of Daniel and Sarah Harper, I made physical contact with Daniel Harper by placing my hand on his chest and pushing him into a wall. I acknowledge that this action constituted assault under North Carolina law. This acknowledgement is made as part of a confidential settlement agreement and is not an admission of liability for any civil or criminal purposes beyond this settlement. It was lawyered, carefully worded, but it was there, in writing, signed by Richard Caldwell. The truth documented. I signed the settlement agreement. Richard signed, the attorneys notarized. It was done. Mr. Harper, Richard's attorney, said, "My client would like a moment to speak with you, privately." I looked at Judith. She shook her head slightly. Warning. 5 minutes, I said, with attorneys present. Richard nodded. His attorney stepped out with Victoria and Judith, giving us space but staying visible through the glass wall. We sat in silence for a moment. "You destroyed my reputation," Richard said finally. His voice was tired, not angry, just defeated. "I told the truth. You told your version of it. The version that was documented, verified, published. Do you feel good about it? About what you've done to this family?" I thought about that. How did I feel? "I feel free," I said, "for the first time in 5 years. You're going to spend the rest of your life alone. You know that, right? You've burned every bridge, made enemies of everyone who mattered. I've made enemies of people who treated me as disposable. There's a difference. You think you're a hero, a whistleblower, a truth teller, but you're just another bitter divorce looking for someone to blame. Maybe, or maybe I'm someone who finally learned to value himself, to set boundaries, to walk away from abuse. I never abused you. Richard, you threw me into a wall. You called my career meaningless. You threatened to destroy me. That's abuse. The fact that you don't see it is the problem." He looked down at his hands. "I was trying to teach you to be strong. You were trying to break me so I'd be useful. That's not—" He stopped, breathed. "I didn't mean for it to go this way." "What did you mean?" "I meant for you to learn, to grow, to become someone worthy of my daughter. I was always worthy. I just wasn't willing to pretend I wasn't." Richard met my eyes. "Do you hate me?" The same questions Sarah had asked. "No," I said. "I pity you. You've spent your whole life building this image of success and power, and it's hollow. Your businesses are failing, your family is fractured, your reputation is damaged. And for what? Because you couldn't let go of control. Because you needed everyone to acknowledge your authority. You don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about. I spent 5 years watching you operate, manipulating, leveraging, playing chess with people's lives. And I know how it ends, lone, surrounded by people who fear you but don't love you." "Like you?" "No, I'm alone by choice. That's different." Richard stood. "I hope you find whatever you're looking for, Daniel." "I already have. It's called peace." He left without another word. The attorneys came back in, finished the paperwork, distributed copies. I walked out of Victoria Brennan's office for the last time carrying a folder full of documents that represented the end of the worst chapter of my life. Judith walked me to my car. "How do you feel?" "Lighter." "Good, you should. This is over. Really over." "What about the final divorce decree?" "Should come through in the next few weeks, but practically speaking, you're done, single, free." Strange how anticlimactic that feels. Endings usually are. We build them up, imagine catharsis, but reality is just signing papers and walking away. "Thanks, Judith, for everything. You did the work. I just facilitated." We shook hands. She drove away. I sat in my car for a moment looking at the Charlotte skyline. This city that had been home for 7 years, scene of my marriage, my career growth, my worst and best moments. I could stay, build a new life here. Or I could leave, start fresh somewhere else. For the first time in years, the choice was mine. My phone buzzed. Miranda. "Team dinner tomorrow to celebrate the Cordoba follow-up contract. You in?" I smiled, typed back, "Absolutely." I drove back to work, spent the afternoon in productive meetings, had dinner with my team at a Korean BBQ place where we laughed too loud and stayed too late. Drove home to my empty house that didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like potential. October in Charlotte is perfect. The air is crisp without being cold. The leaves turn amber and gold. The city comes alive after the summer humidity breaks. I'm running through Freedom Park on a Saturday morning. Something I've made a habit of. 3 miles, sometimes 4. Clearing my head, starting the weekend right. My phone vibrates with a notification. I finish my run, stretch, check it. LinkedIn message from Sarah. I haven't spoken to her since the settlement. Blocked her on everything. Moved on. But curiosity wins. Daniel, I know we're not supposed to contact each other, but I wanted you to know I'm working. Real estate assistant at a small firm. It's entry level, but it's mine. I'm building something. Slowly, I thought you'd want to know. I'm trying. I stare at the message for a long time. Part of me wants to respond, to say I'm proud of her. That growth is hard and she's doing it. But another part knows that's not my role anymore. Sarah's journey is hers. My involvement, even supportive, would just complicate things. I archive the message without responding. At home, I shower, make breakfast. The house looks different now. I've redecorated, added art, made it mine in ways I never did when Sarah lived here. I've also started dating. Nothing serious yet. A few coffee dates, one dinner that went well. I'm learning how to be vulnerable again, how to trust, how to tell my story without making it my entire identity. My phone rings. Mom. Hey, honey, just checking in. How are you? Good, actually, really good. We're thinking about visiting for Thanksgiving. Would that work? That would be great. We chat for 20 minutes. Easy, warm. The kind of relationship I'd neglected while trying to please the Caldwells. After we hang up, I open my laptop, check email. One from Judith. The final decree came through. You're officially divorced. Congratulations, I think. I smile. Officially single. Officially free. Another email from the literary agent who'd contacted me months ago. Still interested in turning your story into a book? I have publishers asking. I'd said no before. Too raw, too fresh. But maybe now. I type back. Let's talk. The Meridian Tech Team Slack shows messages about tonight's plan. Someone's birthday, drinks downtown. Everyone's invited, Marcus. Harper. You better show up, Priya, no excuses. Me, I'll be there. I spend the afternoon working on a personal project, a presentation I'm giving next week at a project management conference. Setting boundaries in high-pressure environments. Drawn from my experience, my story, turning pain into purpose. Around 5, I get ready for the evening. Jeans, nice shirt, the kind of casual but trying that's appropriate for team drinks. I look in the mirror. I look different than I did a year ago. Older maybe, but also settled, comfortable in my skin in a way I never was before. The doorbell rings. I'm not expecting anyone. I open it to find a courier with a certified letter. Daniel Harper? That's me. I sign. He leaves. The return address. Caldwell Holdings. My stomach drops. What now? I open it carefully. It's a single page. Formal letterhead. Dear Mr. Harper, I am writing to inform you that effective September 30th, Caldwell Holdings has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. As part of the restructuring process, I will be stepping down as CEO. This letter is not required by our settlement agreement. I am sending it because I believe you deserve to know that you were right about my business practices, about the unsustainability of my model, about everything. I spent 30 years building an empire on debt and appearances. You spent 5 years documenting its fragility. History will remember which of us saw clearly. This is not an apology. I don't know that I can apologize for being who I am, but it is an acknowledgement. You won completely. Richard Caldwell. I read it twice, 3 times. Richard's empire had fallen. Everything he'd built, maintained through manipulation and leverage and sheer force of will, collapsed. I should feel triumphant, vindicated. Instead, I feel sad. Not for Richard, for the years he wasted chasing appearance over substance, for the relationships he destroyed pursuing power, for the empty victory of being right about his failure. I put the letter in a file folder. Documentation, evidence, proof that the truth had won, but also a reminder of what I don't want to become. Someone so focused on winning that they forget to live. I grab my keys, head to the bar where my team is gathering. When I walk in, Priya sees me first. Harper, finally! Marcus hands me a beer. To our fearless project lead. We drink. We laugh. We tell stories about work disasters and client absurdities and the beautiful chaos of building things together. I'm surrounded by people who value me, choose me, see me as essential, not optional. This is what I fought for, not to destroy the Caldwells, but to reach this moment where I'm free, valued, building a life on my own terms. Later, walking to my car in the cool October night, I think about the past year. The interview I refused to cancel, the job I chose over manipulation, the moment I said no and meant it, every consequence that followed, the divorce, the lawsuits, the public battle, the loneliness, the growth. All of it stemmed from that single choice, to value myself, to set a boundary, to walk away from people who treated me as disposable. Was it worth it? I look at my life now, the career I love, the friendships I've built, the self-respect I've earned, the peace I've found. Yeah, it was worth it. I get in my car, drive home through Charlotte streets I know by heart. Tomorrow is Sunday. I'll run, make breakfast, maybe call Jake, work on the book proposal. Live my life, a life where my future matters, a life I built by refusing to accept less than I deserved, a life where the scars became receipts, and the receipts became evidence, and the evidence became truth, and the truth became freedom. I park in my driveway, walk into my house, turn on the lights. I'm home.